you're good. Hello. Hi. How's my camera? That's all right. Norm Eric Show. robnoerr. Hope everyone's doing great. Sorry I'm starting a little late. A little bit of a different setup tonight. So my man, Hank, we went to the in-laws for dinner, and he decided he refused to come home this evening. So he's staying there. So we tried for a while. I was like, come on, I'm supposed to be streaming at 8. And we tried and tried. So he spent the night there. So my wife is right off camera heckling me tonight. Though we will see. If I get into a debate or something, she might. You'll leave if it's a debate. Yeah. But you might hear her making fun of me every once in a while. If anyone has questions for her, just put them in the chat and we'll make sure she'll be able to read those. What's good? Everything's good. A good day. You got the hat on today, so you're not getting angry bald Rob. Now here's a little secret though. I'm still bald. You just can't see it. It's very philosophical. It's like the if the tree falls in the woods question, right? It's like, if you can't see that I'm bald, am I really bald?
No, we know you're bald.
Yes, I am. I'm bald.
Yeah,
I'm still bald.
Pretty bald.
Something wrong with being bald? Many great men have been bald.
Because when we started dating, your hair was longer than mine.
It's true. Ms. Noor, who wins more debates, me or you? Can you? She'll speak up a little.
Oh, I'm supposed. Okay. Who wins more debates?
Yeah, me or you? That's the question.
Like household debates.
I would guess.
Yeah, seeing I don't debate on the internet.
Right.
So they're not asking about that.
Right.
I think we're pretty even.
Listen, I'll tell you the truth. We don't argue all that much, but if we get in a legit argument, it will come up eventually that she'll say that I'm debating her like I'm debating someone online.
Because you get so irritated.
Right. So.
And you go from like 0 to 100 so fast. Like we'll just have a minor disagreement, and then you start like.
I'm gonna win that argument.
Telling me I'm straw manning.
Didn't you say this 17 minutes ago? Didn't you say that?
With timestamps
Yeah.
included.
Let's go back to the record. It's exactly after Shock says his girlfriend. It's the same thing. She says, "I'm your girlfriend, not some online person." Yeah.
I tell Rob that all the time. Yep. I was like, "I'm your wife, not one of your cronies."
I don't know. I always call you on YouTube here. I always call you Crab. Because I don't speak any language but English. I assume that's Russian or something. But yes, Crab, thank you very much. I do have a good head for baldness.
He does.
True. That's absolutely true. It's a good bald head.
Not where he's balding.
Yeah, it's the classic male pattern baldness. It's classic.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Gray hair and bald.
Yeah. All right. Got that all set up. All right, we're good to go.
Are we?
I'm good to go. What should I stall longer? Russian for Glory King. Okay. I don't know.
Why are you stalling?
No reason.
What are you talking about?
Come here. Oh, there's Dorothy. Hi, Dorothy. Hi, Dorothy. Her sister Annabelle's roaming the halls somewhere here. Dorothy, you're on camera. Are you okay with that, or do you want blurred out?
Yeah, she's
Dorothy's
not.
like, I don't want
She's
these
like, I'm not
psycho right-wing people. No. Blur this out.
Oh, I gotta get Hanky's easel out of here.
She's got a good underbite.
Yeah.
This dog is like, I have not Aftershock. I thought maybe, depending on how late I go tonight, I might watch that. You got a Staffordshire Terrier. That's awesome. Yeah. Dorothy's just a mutt. I think she's part boxer, but just a mutt.
Know.
Are we ever finishing the Destiny Jordan Peterson debate? Probably not. Probably won't finish that one. I don't know. The problem is when I review a debate, it takes me 3 hours to get through 40 minutes of a debate, you know? So it's like, it's not the best comment or content for me because it's like, it'd be different if I was a full-time streamer. That's not so bad. But for me, it's like, I want to break a debate up into 4 parts. You know, it's like, I don't know. I thought we got the gist of the Destiny Jordan Peterson debate? Water.
Tap water.
Tap water's water. That's good. Review Andrew's debate now. Compelling, but she's wrapping paper that Hank had out is what she's walking on.
Well, I used the white part of the wrapping paper on his easel because it's and I already have loads of it. So I had it out, and then I put it away, and then your son knew where it was.
Okay. All right, so here's what I got for you tonight. We could try to go through some of that debate later. What I wanted to do was there's Burisma stuff, and there is January 6th stuff that I think both worth talking about, seeing as though those are issues that I've been pretty heavily involved in. There's also something else that I wanted to talk about briefly, and maybe my editor, Black Elk, maybe this is something he'll clip because it's just a little short. Now, when I say short, it should be 10 minutes, but for me, it'll end up being 2 hours. So we'll get into that in a second. Right. Nice to have your best supporter heckling you the whole time.
That's why I'm here, babe.
All right. So, but one thing I would like to ask people, if you go over to my YouTube channel right now, and I'm on others channels as well, obviously, excuse me, obviously on Twitch, etc. But I want to focus today and here on my YouTube channel. Maybe. There we go. My channel. And you see that Black Elk, I think, is doing a very good job with this editing. The problem is this. Because of my lack of consistency, which is one of the things I'm trying to resolve here, which is why we're editing these videos into 5-10 minute clips, I'm going to try to be uploading videos every weekday, at least one a day, even days I'm not live streaming around noon. Those will probably be smaller clips for my live stream. But I can do a live stream, and even just if I look at YouTube right now, I have 15 people watching live stream on YouTube, 21 people on Twitch, and then X says 20, right? No, Cleano's my wife, by the way, in the chat, so she's now also typing in the chat. Fighting out there, the dogs. Anyways, I put these short-form YouTube videos up, and they never get any attention. 15, 20 views, 30 views, which is weird because I know I have at least 15 people that are watching me live stream. What's up, Jeff? How you doing, man? So if you could just go click and give a thumbs up to the video, it would mean a lot to me. Let's
like and support.
Shush. You don't know how to sell it. If you were on here advertising for me, I wouldn't have to.
I used to make fun of you.
Yeah, I used to say that. Make sure you like and subscribe after the video, and now I don't say it because she made fun of me so much. So we're going to watch one of those videos right now. As you'll see, this video only has 22 views, which is a bummer. But it's from the live stream the other night, so. And I think you'll see, I'm really, really happy with the editing job that Black Elk's done. So, you like that face? Is that nice? You want to just leave it there?
Yeah.
It's good. That's a good look. That's good.
No wonder no one's watching.
Okay, let's go through about 14 connections from Hillary's campaign to Russia. And then they were like,
I like this
wow,
picture you got.
that's different.
You can't hear it, which is nice.
One of the things I learned is you have to get people to flush out what their standard is at the beginning of the conversation. Because if you don't, particularly when you're talking, I won't be abstract. I'll give you the specific instances that I'm talking about. When you're talking about issues of legal cases into Donald Trump. So back when I was on Above Top Secret, it's 2017, we're talking about FISA warrants to spy on Trump's team. Russiagate, looking into Trump for colluding with Russia. Flynn being charged. Papadopoulos being charged. Carter Page being spied on. Roger Stone being charged.
Yes, I use tags. Yes, I'm monetized.
Back then, what I realized was if you just had a conversation like you would with your friends where you're talking about something because you trust your friend, you and your friend are arguing who's the greatest pitcher of all time, you implicitly understand you're talking in good faith. Like, unless there's something on the line, if it's just two friends talking, you're not worried, like, this guy doesn't really believe Satchel Paige. He's bullshitting me for some reason because he's bad faith. So anyways, this is how something like that would work. They would say, well, we had to spy on Trump's team. We had to get those FISA warrants because the allegations were so serious that a presidential candidate and then president and his team were colluding with a hostile foreign power and maybe puppets of a hostile foreign power. So we had to get to the bottom of it. That the allegations were so serious. And so then the simplest question becomes, okay, then what's your standard for this is the point where the allegation is serious enough, requires FISA warrants, spying on a presidential campaign, etc. What's your standard? Because if you don't get them to say what their standard is, do you know what their standard, when you finish the debate, what they're going to say? Can anyone guess at the end of the day what they'll say? When you're like, okay, here's 10 instances of people, accusations of presidential campaigns colluding with hostile foreign powers. What are they going to say? Every time. It's universal. Okay, nothing's universal. So 95% of the time you debate someone on this, they're going to say the same. Well, that's not just it's different. That's ultimately what they're saying.
That Scooby's killing it.
But they're going to say, the thing I'm talking about is exactly what Trump did. That's the issue. Exactly what Trump did. This one's different. That's the standard this time. Exactly right, Lineback. Exactly what they'll do every time. Exactly. That's why it's so important when these stories... You remember when they raided Mar-a-Lago because they got the FBI warrant? Immediately I talked with Pisco, and I'll try to find this debate. Hopefully it didn't get deleted. And I was like, let's go through Pisco now that neither of us know anything. We just know the place got raided. What do we think would be acceptable? What do we think would be over the line? And I was saying things like, I don't think they should raid an ex-president unless all options have been exhausted. Clearly that wasn't the case with Trump. He was still cooperating. They could have done more, etc., etc. They shouldn't raid. It's not worth it. Over that type of shit, once they did decide they were going to raid, the warrant should have been so narrowly tailored. Seemingly it was the opposite. They were taking napkins. They were taking passports. They were taking ball bats. Like, this is crazy. Because if you don't have that conversation, the way the debate will go at the end, once every detail comes out, will be, yeah, what they did was the acceptable way. Exactly what they did is acceptable. And exactly what Trump did is the reason that it was acceptable. So, going back to the allegations against Trump were so serious, therefore the FISA warrant was justified. Tell me, what are the allegations? And this is, I've told this story before, because who I would consider a good left-wing debater on that platform was like, the allegations of a presidential campaign having such numerous connections with a hostile foreign power going into an election. Okay, that's the standard? Yeah. I was like, okay, let's go through about 14 connections from Hillary's campaign to Russia. And then they were like, wow, that's different. That's different. Now, at the end of the day, does that really change? Because that's what they were going to say anyways. Not really.
So that's it. And
the drama.
Hey! I don't want MSNBC. See ya. So give it a thumbs up if you can. If you go over there, I'll put the link. And please, please, please consider following me on YouTube. I'm putting these videos also up on X and on Rumble as well. They will be going up. We're going to try every weekday around noon, at least one video. And I've never watched Hot Ones in my life. I swear, honest to goodness. It's so weird what randomly comes up. But anyways. I just wanted to say that. So I'd appreciate that. All right. Here's a little shorty topic here before we bounce in to the Burisma and then January 6th topics. Did anybody see this clip on X, this post on X of Tom Cotton? Now, Tom Cotton put a video up that was basically like, or a post on X up, that was showing a video of, I believe it was climate protesters, it might have been Palestinian protesters, pro-Palestinian protesters, blocking a street, as you see many times, and someone grabbing them and dragging them out of the way. And Tom Cotton basically puts, this is how you should deal with people like this. Now, let me be completely honest with you. It's one thing for someone like me to potentially say something like that, though I'm very careful to ever suggest anyone put their hands on anyone for any reason. I'm not saying there's never a time to put your hands on someone. And there's a difference between dragging someone out of the way and like beating their daylights out of them or something like that. But I am aware that there is some level of responsibility that as someone who has even a small as audience as me, you have to be very careful before you tell people to go out and put their hands on people. But that's doubly true if you're a senator or something like that. So probably not the wisest move in the world for Tom Cotton to be placing that. Now, Tom Cotton didn't say beat these people severely, use weapons. He said, I wish people would pull them out of the way. And of course, it's true that these people are an incredible nuisance and could literally lead to people's lives being harmed if you're on your way to work and you lose your job, or you're on your way to pick up your kid from school and you're unable to do so, or you're on your way to a medical facility. All of that's true. I'm not discrediting any of that. But I'm just saying, I don't know if it's the wisest for a senator to be saying that, because you know you're going to open yourself up to allegations of, oh, you're telling people to commit assault? That's what you're doing? And then you get in this debate that otherwise wasn't really necessary. Hasan, who's, Cenk Uyghur's nephew, I think, biggest Twitch streamer politically, left, classic millionaire socialist, you know the type. He just retweets Tom Cotton's post and puts a picture of a cartoon drawing of the gun that was sort of a homing gun that was used to assassinate former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. In other words, the implication is he is dog whistling to use a weapon like this against Tom Cotton. Now, I understand what his argument will be. Well, if Tom Cotton could suggest violence against people, then I'll suggest violence against people. The scale is massively different. Tom Cotton suggesting removing people from a roadway is different than dog whistling to use a lethal weapon against a senator that you don't like. I think those are worlds apart. And I don't know what repercussions came Hasan's way, but the rules are different when you're a lefty. You could do stuff like that, and the platforms aren't so quick to cut you off, and the FBI is not so quick to knock on your door. Tell a joke as a right-winger, you'll get a knock from an FBI. Post, assassination claims against a Republican member of Congress, you're a lefty, it's not that big of a deal. But here's the point I wanted to talk about. We need to have a conversation around what constitutes intimidating behavior, assault, etc., that would allow you to forcibly remove someone in order to egress. In other words, I seem to remember many of these same left-wingers that defend the let's block traffic on the highway. I remember them in at least 2 instances saying that the mere act of surrounding someone so that they couldn't escape, or that they felt intimidated and unable to aggress the situation, itself was an act of violence. And I could name both of those. Night 1 at Charlottesville. Does anyone remember this? You may remember it as the Tiki Torch Night. Vice News, who I believe is disbanded now, was on the scene, and they were with all these student protesters, etc., and all of these people that we were told are neo-Nazis, I don't know, whoever they were, not necessarily a group I'd affiliate with, but they all had these tiki torches, and they surrounded the protesters that had implanted themselves around this statue. And what we were told over and over as I was talking about this day, and I remember vividly, me and my wife were out with friends on a sort of little mini vacation. We went to a little casino and had fun. We're out eating dinner, playing slot machines and stuff like that. And as we were coming home, I read, and that's when the Charlottesville business had occurred. And I argued with people quite frequently about exactly what happened that day. Trump didn't say Nazis are good people, et cetera, et cetera. But night one of Charlottesville was this tiki torch, and I argued with people, and they told me over and over, and mainstream people said this as well. That's an act of violence. Surrounding people so they can't escape and intimidating them and shouting words, etc. All of that constitutes an act of violence. So you would be justified punching your way out of that situation. Because the mere surrounding... Now, that's not even as a good of example or analogy as the second example. The second example was Nicholas Sandmann, the Covington story, where the left went nuts because the proper boxes on identity politics were checked in an incident where you had white kids at a private school or a Catholic school at a pro-life movement. Oh, rich white Christian kids, ding, 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 evil, evil, evil. And then this Native American hero, a man by the name of Nathan Phillips, as we were told over and over, he, for his tribe, was the keeper of the sacred pipe. Nathan Phillips. And you remember the video? You like that? Keeper of the sacred pipe? Yeah. In this video, you saw these kids in his face while they were beating a drum. And Nicholas Sandmann was awkwardly smiling. That's what the video showed, and everyone said, oh my God, these kids surrounded this poor Native American and harassed him. It's an act of violence and intimidation. Only it turned out it was the exact opposite of the truth. The truth was that Nathan Phillips intervened on the behalf of black Hebrew Israelites who were adult black racists who were yelling racial and homophobic slurs at children. And Nathan Phillips, the keeper of the sacred pipe, decided that he would intervene on the behalf of the adult homophobic racist. That's what he did. Yeah, I'm definitely getting botted there, but we'll deal with that later. Oh, those lefties. Gotta love them, huh? And so he goes up and Nathan Phillips, Native American associate, starts yelling at these white kids, go back to your country. Go back to your country. Thanks, Afshakiota. Go back to your country, they said. And all of that was edited out, and that background story was edited out, and instead we got these evil white kids surrounded him, an act of violence, intimidation. If that was the take in that incident, if Nathan Phillips would have been justified pushing those kids to the side to get out, how is it any different when someone blocks a highway? If I'm driving down the interstate or a major highway and they block the highway, presumably there's cars behind me. I can't leave. I'm stuck. Is it different because I theoretically could get out of my car and walk away? To where? That's my question. Why is it when we seemingly have left-wingers being surrounded by right-wing groups, that itself is an act of violence? But when left-wing groups do the surrounding, when they block a path of egress, well, you can't touch them. Can't touch them. Of course, it was mighty different when it was a bunch of peaceful truck drivers in Canada protesting Trudeau's draconian lockdown orders. It was ruled illegal. People were arrested. Their banks were frozen. Their bank accounts. They weren't allowed to raise money on places like GoFundMe. Isn't it amazing, those double standards? Isn't it amazing how if me or you would walk through the Capitol uninvited, we'd get thrown in jail. But if Stephen Colbert's people do it, or pro-Palestinian protesters do it, or any other litany of groups, Kavanaugh protesters do it, no problem. None. I just thought that was interesting. So, anyways, congratulations, Hasan, for, implying an assassination attempt against a U.S. senator. Good stuff. All right. What do you think, Court? Clip-worthy? Yeah? What do you think? Oscar?
No,
It's not a movie. Emmy? Well, no, it's, they have,
An Emmy?
they have True Life awards,
Yeah,
right?
I know that, but I don't think that's.
I think it was great. That was the best shit I've ever heard.
It wasn't. I'm just saying. I feel like number one, you're supposed to watch your mouth. Remember?
Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to stop swearing.
Number two, I don't think you're getting an Oscar for that, or an Emmy.
It's unfortunate. All right.
Number three, Aftershock agrees with me. So you're too wise.
Listen, as the majority of the audience knows, Aftershock's usually more wrong than right. So I don't know that that's helping your cause. I think Secret Service is going to investigate all.
You don't have a work wife because you don't.
Right.
With
I work
people.
basically with my
Right. So I feel like sometimes Aftershock might be your work wife.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, you're right. We need some more patriarchy. He's right. By the way, in case you're wondering, Jeff, are you taking orders? I have all Jeff's information there. The PCC right behind me, my friend in the chat there, Jeff Barnes, actually created that for me for the show. It's backlit and everything. It's amazing.
I also have several charcuterie boards.
Yeah, we have charcuterie boards, which we'll be using next week. Jeff, I'm going to a bachelor party that Jeff knows Jimmy, right?
Yeah.
My friend Jimmy's putting together a bachelor party for another one of our friends. We're just getting a cabin at Cook Forest. And so, because we're all incompetent rubes, all of our wives and girlfriends are sending us with food.
So
we will be
are in our own group chat. What are you sending?
So we will be actually making charcuterie board using those boards. So anyways, my friend, it's Cattail Resin Works. So if you're interested, please check it out. You can find them on various social media outlets if you search Cattail Resin Works. I don't know if putting the UPC code up will help, if someone will scan that, but there it is. But yeah. And
it's not a UPC.
Whatever. What's the word for it?
QR.
QR, not C. Yeah, what? EOD, aren't you my debate partner next week and you're already giving me shit about what I call meat trays?
To be fair, Rob called it
Charcuterie.
Rob called it, when we were texting about it, Rob called it
Meat and cheese tray. That's what I called it. Then I was corrected.
And then it translated into charcuterie when it went to the girl group chat.
Oh, Jeff, yeah, that's right. You started putting videos up on YouTube also showing your stuff. So, yeah, check out Jeff's YouTube channel. And if you ever are in the need for some sort of artistic design, also a lot of practical stuff like cutting boards, coffee tables, artistic designs, etc. The coffee table.
Isn't going anywhere, and Hank beats the crap out of it.
Charcuterie board, yeah. But, yeah, why not purchase for someone who's a friend of the show and probably won't use that money for anything too immoral. I don't know. Like, Jeff may go to a hooker, but I'm sure he would tip well. That would be my
He looks like
right.
a good tipper.
Right. So, your money's going to a good place, spurring the local economy. So, all right. Says Jeff.
No, he does all kinds of stuff.
Thanks, Alessa. Yeah. Now listen. Now I know the Crucible people that are watching are like, what? Though I think Andrew's streaming right now, so
yeah. So
I could. Yeah, I don't have to play up to the Christian nationalist crowd too much. Yeah. All right. Let's talk. Let's talk some Burisma.
Charcuterie boards.
charcuterie board. Let's do it. The whole show. Oh,
Could probably do it.
All right.
I
Now,
could probably do it. We're not in charge of the charcuterie. I think we're sending that with Logan. I think we are in charge of snacks, and I'm making those stuffed peppers with the sausage that you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. Stuffed pepper. She makes excellent stuffed peppers with like cheese and sausage. It's very good.
And I think maybe like not like a salad, but like maybe like a pasta salad or something that'll last all weekend.
I have to give an apology. For last night's show. One of the things I try to do, unless it's in the middle of a debate, is shout out anytime someone subscribes, follows, or donates in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes I miss those. All right, so I have to explain how things work. So if you're watching me right now, you can see this screen, and you see on this side.
Yeah, you're back.
There we go. You can see the chat, and that's basically what I see, except I have another panel where I can see all of that too. But that's basically what I see what's there, and that's through Restream. Restream's the service I use to stream to multiple platforms. And so I could see all of the chat that you're able to see, and that's it. I can ban people from the chat through each platform, so I could ban you on YouTube. I could ban you on Twitch, or I could mute you so other people could see you, but I can't. Or I could do that through Restream. And one of the things, because I'm so bad, I did see that. Guess who farted? Because I'm so bad at getting, yeah, it's unfortunate. I'll have some serious point. I'll be like, this country, this corruption that we're seeing. Yes, thank you so much. Guess who farted? This guy for the follow. Yeah,
No.
yeah, that's his name. I'm not making it up. It would be rude not to use his name.
That's true.
Right. Anyways, getting back to this. With the Restream, I get too distracted, particularly by people that are trolling or aggravating me or really stupid in the chat. So what I usually do, instead of just outright banning them, I'll just mute them so I can't see their post. And that's it. They can still post on YouTube and everyone else could see it that's on YouTube, but I can't see it on my screen anymore. So this guy last night who called into the show, what was his name? Quick Hit Meme. I'm sure that's going to be edited as its own little thing, and you all could watch it here in a day or two when it gets put up there, right? I'm sure it'll be there. But I couldn't move on with the show, and it wasn't his fault. It was mine, as I explained, because I couldn't get over the stupidity, and I just kept commenting on it and commenting. So I was just like, I'm just going to mute it so it doesn't distract me, so I go on with the show. Unfortunately, Dorothy, you hit my camera. Unfortunately, Quick Hit Meme donated $50. Thank you so much, Deadly Waffle, for the subscription. Thank you. He donated $50, and I couldn't see it because it was muted. So I have unmuted him because $50 is worth an unmute, to say the least. But also, I wanted to make sure that the audience knew that I do appreciate it. Even if I think that his world take was insane and really stupid, I will take $50 even from a truck driving communist. I will take that money. So my wife and I will spend the truck driving commies money. So Thank you for that. All sincerity, Quick Hit Meme. Thank you so much. And if you're watching, there's Jeff with the super chat. Thanks for the shout out. He says, here's a little money towards getting the Just for Men for that salt and pepper beer. Yeah.
Such a gray, Jeffrey.
Yeah, man.
Such a gray.
Me and Keith Hernandez from those old commercials. Yeah.
Rob, Jeff and I are too young to.
There's Quick Hit Mimi's on there. So thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mucho appreciated. So I'm glad you were here to see that. So.
The only Hernandez I know about is the one you shouldn't know about.
Oh, you're which one is Aaron Hernandez?
I know all about
Yeah.
it.
My wife's really into the true crime, particularly celebrities.
Oh, well, who is it, Rob? Like, I watched that horrible one about R. Kelly. That
Yeah.
was terrible. Never do that again.
Yeah.
And then I watched all the Aaron Hernandez ones.
Yeah.
And then I watched the one about the Menendez brothers.
Yeah. This should be my stream from now on, by the way.
You go
Just my
beat
wife
up.
did you know about R. Kelly? No. Yeah, he's bad. Oh. Aaron Hernandez, how about that guy? Yeah. What about Beretta?
Oh.
Yeah, that guy, he's
What
bad.
about Trevor Bauer? You want want to talk about...
Trevor Bauer didn't do it, man.
Didn't do
now
it.
the lady's being charged.
Yep.
Big Bucks meme truck driver, yeah. I was talking to some truck drivers earlier today, quick hit meme.
My dad.
Yeah, Courtney's dad. So,
Don't make stuff down.
so all right. Let's jump into this Burisma stuff. So, as people are aware that have watched me, for me, I think that the biggest issue in this country are corrupt institutions. Because let's say that we have a socialist on and they want to discuss with me socialized medicine. They believe single payer, Medicare for all, right? Maybe they could make a incredible case for that would be compelling to me and to the majority of Americans. And the majority of Americans might say, wow, what a great case for that. That's what we would like to vote for. That is irrelevant if the people that actually behind the scene wield the levers of power don't agree with you, and they do so in corrupt ways, controlling these levers of power so that your voice doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if 80% of the country wants something if they have no access to having their wants be enforced into power. And so, for example, if we have intel agencies that are putting their thumbs on the scale of our elections, that are sabotaging candidates they don't like and ignoring crimes committed by candidates that they do like, if we have traditional media outlets that have unique access to these people of power that are operating as propagandists to prop up these people, if we have people in cultural institutions like our academics and entertainment sphere that are all working together to push one prominent narrative, if we have social media places that are working with other institutions, including government agencies, to shut down and censor conversations that are critical of those agencies, all of that is a precursor to having any sort of discussion on what sort of individual policies that we should be pushing for. As such, when we have the most powerful intel and law enforcement agencies in the history of the world, and they seem to be engaged in a double standard, going after one group of people that they don't like, that are critical of them, and supporting the other group even if they commit crimes, it makes it a bigger deal than anything that those individuals would be accused of. That's sort of my worldview, and one of the cases that's come up as a result of this is a case involving the Bidens and Burisma. The reason this case is so important is because when Trump was impeached the first time, I thought the Republicans were doing a terrible job in the House and in the impeachment trials of defending Trump. The reason was, the accusation against Trump was that he issued a quid pro quo, that he was not going to give the Ukrainian government money unless the Ukrainian government, in the form of Zelensky in this phone call, announced that they were investigating Joe Biden. Who Joe Biden wasn't running against Trump at this time, but everybody knew he was eventually going to put his hat in the ring. All right, he was running, but he wasn't the candidate. Everyone knew he had a good shot of being the winner of that primary. So the argument was, it's impeachable because Trump said, I want you to investigate my opponent. And you can't do that. Now, there were problems with this case, and some of these problems were brought up. One, it was not a direct quid pro quo. He never said it, even with the transcript we have of the audio. He didn't say, if you don't do this, you won't get the money. They didn't do what he asked. They did get the money, so it seems self-evident that even if it was a suggested quid pro quo, it never came to fruition. But there was a better case to be made, which I never heard Republicans make until almost the 0 hour. And that was, the precedent had been set with the Obama administration, and almost everyone on the left agreed that there's no problem with the sitting president instructing his agencies to investigate their opponents, as long as there is suspicion of a crime that occurred. Right. We now have further proof after the impeachment. Joe Biden's DOJ heavily investigating Donald Trump. Barack Obama, his FBI, heavily investigated Donald Trump. The reason we're told that's okay is, but Trump committed crimes. The allegations, there was enough smoke there of suspected crimes that it was okay to do these investigations. So the defense of Trump in the impeachment should have always been, as long as there was reason to suspect a crime had occurred with Biden, it's perfectly legitimate for the chief executive, before dispensing $1 billion, to ask that cooperation from investigating that crime be done. Completely reasonable. Completely reasonable. But the Republicans weren't making that case. And as you investigated the Burisma case with the Bidens, what you found was the impeachment of Trump. One, it was they were going to impeach him for something anyways. It was always about just throwing as much stuff against the wall and seeing what would stick to stop Donald Trump. That was always the case. But second, they always wanted to accuse him, just like the rest of us. They accuse you of exactly what they're doing. And so they realized it was a real weakness, what Biden had done as vice president, when it came to this Burisma case, in his actual quid pro quo. They realized it was an incredible weakness. And so they turned that weakness into a strength. Instead of being worried that perhaps Trump would appoint people around him that would actually do the right thing and investigate it, which would come out and look terrible for the Democrats and for the potential Biden presidential run, they said, no, we'll turn it on his head. We'll say you can't look into it. You looking into it itself is an act of corruption. That's what went on. And so I've covered the Burisma case extensively for a long time since then. The simplest I could make the case is this. These are verified facts. I'll try to not put my opinion in as much as possible and just give the verified facts. Joe Biden was vice president. He was deemed the point person for Ukraine in weeding out corruption. Ukraine was almost universally agreed to be a very corrupt country. The president at the time in 2014 was a man by the name of Poroshenko. It was Yanukovych was the president. Before Poroshenko. Yanukovych was considered to basically be a puppet of Vladimir Putin. He loses an election. Poroshenko comes in. Poroshenko becomes an ally of the United States, particularly the Obama State Department. Joe Biden is the point person with dealing with remnants of corruption. Joe Biden's son then ends up working for a man named Zlochevsky, who is considered a pro-Russian oligarch in Ukraine. He's considered a criminal who's done many crimes, but the most relevant here is he owns these gas companies, one called Burisma, and he's accused of, when he was a politician, using his influence to corruptly obtain drilling license, access to natural resources, etc., that incredibly enriched himself in corrupt ways. So the U.S. State Department considers Zlochevsky to be a pro-Russian criminal. Not my words. These are the agreed upon people that are operating under Biden. Biden's the point person. This is what Biden's team's saying. So the point person's son is now directly working for one of the guys that they're supposed to be dealing with that's allegedly corrupt. That's what's going on. And there's really no answer for this. It's not that Hunter Biden was a shrewd natural gas investigator. He had no experience. It wasn't that he had a lot of experience in the area in Ukraine. He didn't have experience. But yeah, he was still hired. I'm not going to editorialize. You could come to your own judgment why he was hired. Meanwhile, we have this prosecutor general that comes in. First, we had one called Yarema. Yarema was accused of all sorts of corruption. He is ousted. In comes a man by the name of Viktor Shokin. Viktor Shokin is he is on paper at least, tasked with being the lead prosecutor looking into Zlochevsky and Burisma. In other words, here's the prosecutor who, at least on paper, is the dude looking in to the vice president's son's company. And when I say son's company, he didn't own the company. Hunter Biden didn't own the company, but he sat on the board of directors. He was making roughly $77,000 to $100,000 a month. Huge amounts of money. There's accusations eventually that get levied that Shokin's corrupt. Joe Biden then decides that he's going to issue a legitimate quid pro quo, which he would talk about publicly afterwards, where he said, we will not give you this $1 billion loan guarantee. So that's $1 billion of our tax dollars. We will not give this to you, Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, unless you fire this prosecutor, Viktor Shokin. Viktor Shokin claims he was investigating Burisma. He claims that he was going to look into Hunter Biden and seek deposition from Hunter Biden. His claim is that he was basically told he had to go because he wouldn't drop it. Nonetheless, the quid pro quo works. Viktor Shokin gets fired. A man by the name of Lutsenko comes in. Or is it Lutsenko, I believe. Lutsenko comes in. Biden says at the time he was good. And within 6 months, Lutsenko completely drops the case against Burisma. So much so that Zlochevsky, who had fled the country for fear of prosecution, returned to the country as a hero, started his business up again for years, continued to employ Hunter Biden. Despite the fact that activists in Ukraine that were relied on to say that Shokin was corrupt also say that Lutsenko was corrupt, the United States never again issues a quid pro quo to fire the corrupt prosecutor in Ukraine. That's the story. If I can make that even simpler, Joe Biden was supposed to deal with corruption, but his son was working for the guy that they said was corrupt. The duties of Hunter Biden there were to reach out to his contacts in the United States to get the case dropped against that corrupt leader. Joe Biden himself issued a quid pro quo of $1 billion of your tax dollars to fire the prosecutor looking into them. The prosecutor got fired, and then Burisma got everything they wanted, and the case was dropped. That's it. Now, we've talked about the specifics of this. What are the defenses? Why wasn't there an incredible investigation? My standard was quite simple. Anytime that we have a prominent politician, particularly in an executive agency, that is threatening the withholding or the use of your tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor that is investigating a company that their direct family is implicated in, there ought to be an immediate investigation. Simple enough, correct? That doesn't seem, I don't care if your name's Biden or Obama or Bush or Trump. We also know, and I've asked this over and over in the litany of times I've debated people on this, to my knowledge, I have yet to find even one example in the history of the United States where we have conditioned any amount of aid on the firing of one prosecutor. There's been times we've conditioned aid on nebulous things like weeding out corruption in your intel agencies. But never has it been as clear as you don't get this money unless you fire this one guy. And we know the end result was, once that guy was fired, Burisma wins. They get what they want. What we're told is it's just a big coincidence. That's the story. Now, I can go into details on this topic for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. But in a nutshell, that's it. Does anyone have any specific questions that they want me to dig into more? Janice says, Rob, you would do anything you could for your son. You understand? Of course. That's why part of the argument of the Biden defenders has always been a sham. They seem to imply that actually Shokin's lack of action on Burisma was one of the reasons that Joe Biden and company wanted him gone. In other words, Biden was upset his son's company wasn't being investigated hard enough. My argument from the get-go was that's nonsense. Do you have a son? Do you have a child? What kind of parent is saying, shucks, I'm upset that my son's company's not being investigated hard enough? But just because you may understand his actions as a father don't mean they're legitimate as a vice president. Particularly when the argument is we need to prosecute the other guy for looking into it. So has everyone got the gist of the Burisma story? Do I need to delve any more before we get to the new details today? The defenses I've heard of this are, one, the prosecutor Viktor Shokin actually wasn't investigating. Well, that's sort of irrelevant as to whether or not he was actually investigating or not. First, there's solid evidence that he was. For example, we know that if the investigation wasn't occurring, it would be very odd that then in February of 2016, he froze the assets of Zlochevsky. That'd be very odd if there was not an ongoing investigation. Second, we know through testimony of Hunter Biden's business associate, Devin Archer, that Zlochevsky said personally that he was under pressure from, quote, Ukrainian government investigations. So the narrative all along is there wasn't an investigation is a lie. And it's irrelevant as to whether the investigation was occurring or not. What is relevant is, did Zlochevsky think that there was an investigation? Because what makes this shady is Zlochevsky hiring the vice president's son as a lobbyist. And then the vice president's son, Hunter Biden, reaching out to his father to intervene in legal proceedings involving Burisma. Or, if I could make this case as simple as possible. Janice, you're someone who's not exactly right-wing, I don't think, so I'll ask you. Would it be troubling and corrupt if this prosecutor was investigating Zlochevsky and Burisma, and Zlochevsky said, Hunter, reach out to your dad and get this prosecutor fired so the investigation ends? And then Hunter reaches out to his dad and they fire the prosecutor. Would that be corrupt? Anyone could answer. Explain it to me like I'm 5. I can't do it. I can explain it to you like you're 3. Janice, do you think that'd be corrupt? Prosecutor's investigating this guy. Guy hires the vice president's son and says, hey, talk to your dad and get this prosecutor fired. So they fire the prosecutor. Would that be corrupt? I mean, this is a simple one. It's not a trick question. Anyone? I don't have enough people in my audience to just answer immediately. Most people are probably eating roast beef sandwiches. And
I don't blame them, honestly.
right.
That's how I handle you most of the time, with a roast beef sandwich.
Hey, EODs is not corrupt at all. Yeah. Unfortunately, my audience is too smart. Depends on if you're a Democrat. Your last name's not Biden. It's clearly corrupt.
Well,
What's up, Jim Bob Shoulders?
poor guy.
Shoulder? Come here.
His father was eating, or his uncle was eating.
I know you're being facetious. So yeah, it would clearly be corrupt. Everyone would agree that. Even a reasonable, good faith Democrat would have to agree. Of course. Using your station as vice president to force the firing of a prosecutor at the behest of your son's company is corrupt. But here's the further quote. So we agree with that stance. Okay, we've got that out of the way. Would it be corrupt then? And please answer honestly. Nick Claus is eating ramen, not roast beef. There we go. I love ramen. That's what my son had for dinner.
Is it good ramen, or is it like...
Are you just doing like the generic, like that's what I eat, the
Cup of
generic.
noodle.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the serious part though. So we agree, if the prosecutor actually was investigating and the guy says, I want this guy fired, call your dad, get him fired, and then dad fires him, yeah, that's corrupt. But what if the guy wasn't investigating? What if the prosecutor was not investigating? What if he's just like, ho hum, I don't care. But Zlochevsky thinks he is. So Shokin, the prosecutor's not investigating. But Zlochevsky's like, damn, that guy's investigating me. He's wrong, though. But he thinks he's investigating him. And he says, Hunter, I think this guy's investigating me. Get a hold of your dad and get him fired. And so Hunter gets a hold of his dad and gets him fired. Is that corrupt? That's the question. We all agree, if he is actually investigating, of course it's corrupt. But what if he wasn't investigating? It's just that Zlochevsky thought he was. Is that still corrupt? Absolutely wrong, Janice. You could not be more wrong. How is this even debatable? How is that debatable? Explain your rationale how that wouldn't be an act of corruption. And this seems to be an argument that people try to make. This is, I mean, do we have to go through it step by step? And I know it gets confusing because there's a lot of names. But let's break this down. Let's break this down as simple as possible. Let's say, like, maybe it's easier if we use like a fictional reference that people understand. Let's say you're watching The Sopranos and Tony Soprano's like hires the mayor's daughter. And he says, hey, I don't like this prosecutor. He's coming after our company. So I want you to call your dad and tell him we're going to pay you a ton of money and then have your dad get this dude fired. You'd say, yes, if that prosecutor was investigating The Sopranos, then that's corrupt. But if he wasn't, and Tony was mistaken and still paid the mayor's daughter to get this guy fired, you're like, oh, that's not corrupt. Of course that's still corrupt. Of course it is. It absolutely is still corrupt. How is that not corrupt? Oh, it's okay to bribe the vice president to fire a prosecutor as long as that prosecutor wasn't looking into you. I mean, it's nonsensical. So the people that say, but actually, Shokin wasn't really looking into them. One of the things we know, undisputed, is Devin Archer testified that Zlochevsky said, I'm under pressure from Ukrainian government investigations. No, let's say that the guy that got fired was actually corrupt. It still wouldn't justify it. You might say, if the guy was corrupt, then Biden was okay in suggesting he be fired. But it wouldn't make it okay for Biden's son to be working for someone and then be paid to go to his dad to get the guy fired. What's up, old Joe? That would not be okay. This is a separate argument, though. Because the argument we're talking about are the defenses of this. The first defense is Shokin wasn't really investigating. Shokin being corrupt is irrelevant to this point. The point is just, it doesn't matter if Shokin was really investigating or not. One, he was. But second, and more importantly, even if he wasn't, the founder of Burisma thought he was. He wanted the dude gone. Sounds like a conspiracy. Yes, a group of people coming together to have an unlawful or corrupt act is a conspiracy. Now, the second argument that could be levied is, but even if all that's true, even if Burisma wanted Shokin gone and had Hunter lobby, including to his father, to get rid of Shokin, it doesn't matter. Because if Shokin was corrupt outside of that, Biden's still justified in wanting his firing. There's going to be a lot of problems with that. First off, you would have to argue that if there is a personal motivation and a legitimate motivation to demand this guy's firing, then we just ignore the personal motivation. And I could argue that that's already been proven to not be the standard of the Democrats. For example, how many Democrats agreed that there should have been a special counsel led by Bob Mueller to look into Trump for Trump-Russia collusion after he fired James Comey? Well, that would be a 99.999%, right? Everyone agrees with that. Democrats were more than happy. Oh, he fired Comey. He interfered with the FBI's investigation. We need to now have a special counsel, right? That was the argument. However, did Republicans want James Comey fired? Yes, they called for his firing, even ones that weren't Trump. Many of them called for his firing. Did Democrats want James Comey fired? Yes! They said that he was terrible for reopening the Hillary investigation right before the election, and it was inappropriate, and he cost Hillary the election. So they also wanted him gone. And yet, despite the fact that both Republicans and Democrats wanted Comey gone, and the assistant director, Rod Rosenstein, wrote a letter suggesting firing Comey, when Trump eventually fired Comey, those same Democrats and Rod Rosenstein said, well, now we have to have a special counsel. The argument wasn't, but wait a minute, wasn't there legitimate reasons that a bunch of people wanted him fired? Their argument would have been, that could be true, Rob. However, we feel that Trump stood to gain personally. His motivation was personal for wanting James Comey fired. And therefore, even if Comey deserved to be fired, and even if people on both sides of the aisle agreed he should have been fired, the intent for why Trump fired Comey justified the investigation into Trump. Right? Why would the situation be any different here? Even if it's true, which there's no proof of, and we'll get to in a minute, that everyone in the EU and the IMF and the State Department wanted Viktor Shokin fired, why wouldn't there have been an investigation subpoenaing Joe Biden, subpoenaing Hunter Biden, subpoenaing anyone they could, Viktor Shokin, Poroshenko? Clearly, there was personal motivation. No matter how you slice it, what you can't get around is this. The firing of Viktor Shokin heavily benefited Hunter Biden's corrupt boss. We know that Hunter was directed to reach out to his contacts to get these investigations dropped. We know that it was Hunter's dad himself that came up with the quid pro quo. We know as a result of that quid pro quo, Hunter Biden's boss got exactly what he wanted. The case is dropped. Undisputed. All of that is undisputed. So what does it matter if a bunch of people in the EU said he wanted him fired? And that's the third defense, by the way. Well, everyone wanted Shokin gone. And yet you can't find any evidence of it. You could find evidence after the fact of people writing in March and April of 2016, oh yeah, we wanted Shokin gone. But there's no evidence that that was occurring before Joe Biden personally came up with the quid pro quo. And in an interview that was done for a documentary, one of the aides that was on the plane with Joe Biden admitted that it was Joe Biden himself on the plane ride over that actually came up with the quid pro quo. So it wasn't the State Department. It was the guy whose son was financially winning the lottery, getting paid by the corrupt business. That's the guy who made the decision. The argument that the establishment wants you to believe is this. Joe Biden's the point man for weeding out corruption. He knows that Burisma's corrupt, Zlochevsky's corrupt, yet his son goes to work for him. His son is hired to basically lobby people in the United States to get the case dropped. Joe Biden comes up with the decision to issue this quid pro quo to get rid of this prosecutor, which directly results in the case being dropped, which massively financially benefits Hunter Biden. But it's all just a coincidence and we don't need to look into it. And not only do we not need to look into it, if the next guy, Donald Trump, tries to look into it, we'll impeach him. That's the argument. So that's where we stood. The next argument that they try to make now is, the last argument, there was this guy named Smirnov, who is a confidential human source for the FBI, and he lied about allegations of Zlochevsky paying the Bidens. Now, it is true that one of the biggest smoking guns, thank you so much, Ross Lewis, I really appreciate the sub. One of the biggest smoking guns, if true, was the FBI 1023 from a confidential human source that had said that this person who was trusted by the FBI and used as a source personally heard Zlochevsky say, I paid $5 million to Joe Biden to get this prosecutor fired. If that's true, that's a smoking gun. If it's true. But it should have been investigated, and we had the IRS whistleblowers say we weren't allowed to look into these allegations, etc. That guy who was the confidential human source has now been charged with lying to the FBI. Now, we'll see what happens in that case. I've talked a lot about that as well, as to whether or not that guy was actually lying. But let's, for the sake of argument, say that's true, that he was lying. Does that dispute anything that I said up until this point? It would heavily dispute the fact that we had audio confirmation that the guy involved, Zlochevsky, paid Biden $5 million. Absolutely agree. If this guy lied and made that up, then clearly that's not something that should be evaluated. How about everything else I just talked about? And yet, the argument made by the establishment and the Biden supporters is as follows. That guy lied. The whole case is garbage. The whole case is garbage. Everybody said that was so important, but if that's a lie, then the whole case is garbage. No, that was important on its own, in the sense that if true, that would be a smoking gun. But even if that evidence never came to light, or if it's a complete and total fabrication, that doesn't mean that the rest of the stuff isn't true. And what we know for a fact is there was no serious investigation ever undertaken of Joe Biden's quid pro quo, of the allegations of Viktor Shokin, that he was told by the Ukrainian president that he was being let go because he wouldn't drop the Burisma case. So the case goes incredibly deep, like I said, and I could get into it. But that's it. Those are the defenses. Their argument is tantamount to, sure, this is the first time in history that the United States has withheld aid for the firing of a prosecutor. And sure, it just so happened that the firing of that prosecutor massively helped out this corrupt company. And sure, it just so happened that by massively helping that corrupt company, it massively helped Hunter Biden. It's just a coincidence. They meant to do well. And yeah, all of these people in the United States were really upset about corrupt prosecutors in Ukraine. But for some reason, they had no problem with this corrupt prosecutor that let Burisma off the hook. They were like, shucks, I guess there's no sense complaining again. You're trying to find evidence that Biden withheld aid to have a Ukrainian prosecutor fired? You don't know this? I mean, I could show you documents, stories, etc. Maybe the easiest thing to do would just be to play the audio of him admitting it in the Council of Foreign Relations. So here's Joe Biden in his own words.
Or loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. Well, so they made some genuine, substantial changes.
Is that good enough for you? They put into place a guy that was solid at the time. Right, that let your son off the hook. Let your son's company off the hook. And this is confirmed. That happened. Now there's, again, vehemently, I've debated over and over. People that are familiar with my channel have seen me debate all sorts of people on this issue. All sorts of people. They're like, well, it's just a coincidence. He means well. They wanted that guy fired for various reasons. Yeah, nice to see you, old Joe. Nice to see you, Aircraft. Now that brings us to the news story. Now, I started talking about my interest or knowledge of Burisma started in the impeachment of Trump about this. The impeachment of Trump started when a Trump-hating, I don't know what he was, member of the State Department named Alexander Vindman, supposedly called around because he heard troubling information about a phone call that Trump had had with Zelensky. And then eventually a whistleblower started to work with Adam Schiff and the Democrats, bringing forth transcripts or audio, I think it was transcripts, of the phone call. Now, for a long time, we were not allowed to know the name of this whistleblower. He was considered a hero. We were told by mainstream media outlets that if this person's name was known, his life would be in jeopardy. Because he was so serious that Trump people might snuff him out, I guess. There were even posts on social media that would out this guy's name who would be censored. That's how serious it was. And this whistleblower was a hero. And we come to find out that he was a man by the name of Eric Ciaramella. Now, we knew that Eric had some sort of connection to the Obama State Department and being involved in policy surrounding Ukraine, etc., etc. But new information has since came out. Does anyone think there would be a conflict of interest if Ciaramella was involved in the decisions to issue the quid pro quo to Shokin, and he's the one blowing, or to Poroshenko, and he's the one blowing the whistle on Trump trying to get Zelensky to cooperate to investigate it? In other words, if there is an alleged crime of this quid pro quo, and Trump's trying to get it looked into, and one of the people that perpetrated that exact incident is the whistleblower, does anyone think that would be a conflict of interest? What's up, Gizmo? How you doing, man? Anyone? You think that's something that should have came out in an impeachment trial? Well, I do. I think that it's evident. He clearly had skin in the game. So now let's see what this new evidence says, shall we? No, now I got to find it again. See, they made me bring up that video. Now, here we go. This is from Real Clear Investigations, Paul Sperry, April 17th. So this is yesterday. The whistleblower who sparked Donald Trump's first impeachment was deeply involved in the political maneuvers behind the Biden family business schemes in Ukraine that Trump wanted probed. Newly obtained emails from former Vice President Joe Biden's office reveal. In 2019, then National Intelligence Council analyst Eric Ciaramella touched off a political firestorm when he anonymously accused Trump of linking military aid for Ukraine to a demand for an investigation into alleged Biden corruption in that country. But 4 years earlier, while working as a national security analyst attached to the then Vice President Joe Biden's office, Ciaramella was a close advisor when Biden threatened to cut off U.S. aid to Ukraine unless it fired its top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, who was investigating Ukraine-based Burisma holdings. At the time, the corruption-riddled energy giant was paying Biden's son Hunter millions of dollars. Those payments, along with other evidence tying Joe Biden to his family's business dealings, received little attention in 2019 as Ciaramella accused Trump of a corrupt quid pro quo. Neither did subsequent evidence indicating that Hunter Biden's associates had identified Shokin as, quote, a key target. These matters are now part of a House impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Quote, it now seems there was material evidence that would have been used at an impeachment trial to exonerate Trump, said George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley, who has testified as an expert witness in the ongoing Biden impeachment inquiry. Quote, Trump was alleging that there was a conflict of interest with the Bidens, and that the evidence could have challenged Biden's account and established his son's interest in the Shokin firing. Ciaramella's role, including high-level discussions with top Biden aides and Ukrainian prosecutors, is only now coming to light thanks to the release of the White House emails and photos from the National Archives. The emails show Ciaramella express shock, quote, yikes, is what he wrote, at Biden's move to withhold $1 billion in aid from Kyiv, which represented a sudden shift from U.S. policy. They also show he was drawn into White House communications over how to control adverse publicity from Hunter taking a lucrative seat on Burisma's board. Yet there's no evidence Ciaramella raised alarms about these questionable Biden business activities he witnessed firsthand, which is in sharp contrast to 2019. Pause. That's the first thing. Now, this guy felt so strongly about overhearing this phone call between Trump and Biden and Trump and Zelensky and the alleged quid pro quo, which you could read the transcripts. It wasn't a quid pro quo, but it was alleged or said that it was implied. And yet he personally witnessed Biden's quid pro quo. and saw all of the shadiness there and didn't speak up as a whistleblower. Ninja says, hey, what do you say to someone that this is just fabricated by Republicans? It's not. We have the transcripts. We have the emails. You could show them. Most of them will choose to say, nope, I don't believe it anyways. And what can you do? That person is in a cult. They hate Orange Man. That's what it's about. And so they can't admit that the impeachment was erroneous, that what they're accusing Trump of doing is actually what Biden did. So they're never going to accept it. So this dude, and what they say was there's an email, and we'll read the email. Yeah, I got a link to it. We'll read the email, right? It's on this article. He says, yikes. Now, what you're going to see, and I picked up on this, by this point, I picked up on. In debate, when I did policy debate, we used to have something that was called a double bind. And a double bind means that what your position is, in either case, you're screwed, basically. Well, if you're right, if Bush wins, you're screwed. But if Gore wins, you're screwed. He's in a double bind. Because on one hand, if he was involved with this quid pro quo, and he was one of the people that recommended it, then that means that there was an incredible conflict of interest that should have been disclosed when he was 4 years later the whistleblower saying, how dare this quid pro quo be looked into? That's a huge conflict of interest, which everyone admitted before we started here. Or he saw a big problem, which is why he said, yikes. Uh-oh, this is not good. What? What did Joe Biden just do? If that's the case, then he's also in a lot of trouble because, one, if he's the type of dude that's going to blow the whistle with corrupt things like quid pro quos happening, why didn't he do it with Biden in 2016? And second, why wouldn't he say, yeah, Trump's got a point, this was incredibly shady in 2019? So he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Which one is it? No problem, Ninja. Yet there is no evidence Ciaramella raised alarms about the questionable Biden business activities when he witnessed firsthand, which is in sharp contrast to 2019. In that instance, he was galvanized into action after being told by White House colleague Alexander Vindman of improper phone call between Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. During the call, Trump solicited Zelensky's help in investigating Burisma and Hunter Biden's role in the company. Some former congressional investigators say Ciaramella effectively helped cover up for a scandal far worse than what Trump was impeached over. No shit. Actually doing a quid pro quo for $1 billion to fire a prosecutor that results in your son's company's case being dropped is a far bigger deal than Trump saying, hey, maybe we should look into it. What's more, he failed to disclose that he had a potential conflict of interest stemming from his connection to the matter Trump asked Zelensky to probe when he lodged his complaint against Trump. Real Clear Investigations was the first to identify the then 33-year-old Ciaramella as the anonymous impeachment whistleblower, something major media outlets continue to keep tight wraps under. Ciaramella worked under the CIA Director John Brennan when President Obama made Biden his point man on Ukraine in 2014. The same year, Burisma hired Hunter. The next year, the CIA detailed Ciaramella, a longtime advocate for aid to Ukraine, to the White House, where he worked closely with Biden and his staff as a top advisor to key Ukrainian policies. After Biden left office, he stayed on at the GOP White House until mid-2017, even though he's a Democrat, working as a Ukrainian and Russian analyst on Trump's National Security Council. Co-workers there accused him of trying to sabotage Trump, including allegedly leaking sensitive information to the press. Here he is on Air Force Two talking to Biden. This is literally on the trip where Biden would issue his quid pro quo. Real Clear Investigations has reviewed more than 2,000 pages of newly disclosed archived emails of the former vice president's office related to Ukraine, of which more than 160 contain references to Ciaramella. They revealed that his role in advising Biden's office potentially intersects with the current impeachment inquiry in several areas. Chiefly, Ciaramella focused on aid to Ukraine and anti-corruption reforms in the country. In that capacity, he hosted, cleared into the White House, and met face-to-face with senior Ukrainian prosecutors, gave a readout of the meeting to his superiors, who he in turn pushed for Shokin's firing, traveled with Biden to Kiev during the 2015 trip to which Biden demanded Shokin's firing, wrote media talking points for Ukrainian officials, huddled with top Biden officials involved in discussions concerning the $1 billion aid package and Shokin, including Amos Hutchinson, Victoria Nuland, Jeffrey Pyatt, Bridget Brink, and Michael Carpenter, corresponded with Biden officials coordinating responses to negative media reports about Hunter's cushy and controversial job at Burisma. In other words, he was directly involved with this quid pro quo business. So this whistleblower, Israel just hit Iran. I didn't see that. We'll look after this. So this whistleblower that was like, wow, I'm really troubled that Trump's trying to look into this quid pro quo, is literally one of the top people that would be implicated. I did world renowned. I read, there's probably a little delay, but yeah, we'll get to it later. Continues. Former Obama-Biden administration officials have confirmed in recent closed-door congressional testimony that Ciaramella was a key part of Biden's process for making policy in Ukraine. In 2016, for instance, a White House photo shows him taking notes at a White House meeting Biden held with Ukraine Prime Minister Arsenij Yatsenyuk to discuss Ukraine's anti-corruption reforms and other issues. Ciaramella also worked directly with top Obama and Biden administration diplomats in Ukraine, including Victoria Nuland, Victoria Color Revolution Nuland. Isn't it funny how she's always involved? Quote, Eric was regularly the clearing authority to get me into the White House for interagency meetings on Ukraine, Nuland revealed in a 2020 Senate deposition. Asked if she ever discussed Ukrainian policy and Shokin with Ciaramella, Nuland testified, of course I did. He was part of the interagency process. He was also on my negotiating team for the 6-7 rounds of negotiations I did with the Russians on the disputed Ukrainian region Donbas. Ciaramella was directly involved in talks concerning the massive U.S. aid package to the Ukraine and the Biden-commissioned removal of Shokin, who at the time had seized the assets of the corrupt Burisma oligarch employing Hunter Biden. Shokin seizes the assets? Nope, get rid of them. He also arranged and participated in White House talks with Ukrainian prosecutors visiting from Shokin's office. White House visitor logs confirmed Ciaramella escorted Shokin's deputy prosecutor, David Sakravides, I always screw that name up, in the White House for a January 2016 meeting. A White House agenda for the meeting lists Ciaramella as a point of contact for the Ukrainian delegation. He also checked in Andrei Telezenko, the Ukrainian embassy official, who says they discussed Burisma and Hunter Biden during the meeting and struggled to understand why his U.S. counterparts were suddenly hostile to Shokin after praising him in earlier talks. Emails from the time show Ciaramella appeared surprised to hear about the linkage between the $1 billion loan to Ukraine and the dismissal of Shokin. Though Biden maintains he insisted Kiev oust Shokin because he was too soft on weeding out fraud in entities that included Burisma, Ciaramella suggested he didn't share the view that Shokin was corrupt. Quote, we were super impressed with the group, Ciaramella added, and we had a 2-hour discussion of their priorities and obstacles they face. We'll get back. This is the email here. We'll get back to it in a second. On January 21st, U.S. Ambassador Ukraine Jeffrey Pyatt emailed Ciaramella and other White House aides an article from the Ukrainian press. U.S. loan guarantee conditional on Shokin's dismissal. So Pyatt sends something and says, just an article that says, oh, now the loan that we agreed to give Ukraine is conditioned on Shokin being fired. Ciaramella, who's deeply involved with this, as we've already read, here's the email he says. Ready? From Ciaramella. Yikes. I don't recall this coming up with our meeting with them on Tuesday, although we did discuss the fact that the PGO IG condition is not in yet. So he's saying, I don't recall that coming up. We just met with his team. We just met with Shokin's team on Tuesday. This is Thursday. And we didn't bring this up. We did say that reform's needed. Then he says in parentheses, I've been meaning to write you about our meeting. We were super impressed with the group. We had a 2-hour discussion of their priorities and obstacles they face. And yesterday's IPC, we agreed to come up with some interagency press guide and TPs for UA officials on the Shokin LG issue. So we will circle back to Europe and their press folks to expedite that effort. Now, a key portion of the Democrat story is as follows. It was not Joe Biden who came up with the quid pro quo. Everybody agreed. Everybody. This was policy that just was handed to Joe Biden. The EU wanted a quid pro quo to fire him. The US, the State Department, all these people wanted a quid pro quo. And yet, we cannot find one document showing that. The first message of a quid pro quo comes in November from the State Department memos that Biden's involved with. No other agency. None. This guy who's intimately involved is like, oh shit, yikes. It's not supposed to be swearing.
It's true.
Yikes.
Aw, shucks.
We met with the group. We thought it went pretty good. Where's the whistleblower? This guy's a whistleblower, right? Where is he? That's absolutely right, Cavion, and we've looked. So the Europeans also were involved in having sort of a collective sort of EU group that was working with Ukraine on corruption, and they recommended that there was reforms being made and things were looking swimmingly, and they recommended giving the loan, and that was from a memo, I believe, in October of 2015. Now, when I debate someone like Pisco or someone like Ruminate on this, they just keep going, but the timeline doesn't make sense. Now, it is true that there was suggestions, not of a quid pro quo, but of urging the firing of Shokin, and I believe a November State Department memo, which I aforementioned. But the problem is this memo comes directly after an email that was sent by leadership in Burisma to Devin Archer and Hunter Biden saying, we want you to reach out to your connections in the United States about key figures, including the Prosecutor General Shokin, with the ultimate goal of getting the cases against Burisma dropped. Right around the same time that memo was sent, magically, all of a sudden, the State Department's saying, we should get rid of Shokin. There he is. There's Pisco. That's not entirely true. Quote, Andrei Telizhenko, the Ukrainian embassy official, said they discussed on that January meeting. He checked in Andrei Telizhenko, the Ukrainian embassy official who says they discussed Burisma and Hunter Biden during the meeting and struggled to understand why his U.S. counterparts were suddenly hostile to Shokin after praising him in earlier talks. Whoops, I guess Pisco missed that part. Here, I'll put it up just so we'll highlight it just for him. He also checked in with Andrei Telizhenko, the Ukrainian embassy official who says they discussed Burisma and Hunter Biden during the meeting and struggled to understand why his U.S. counterparts were suddenly hostile to Shokin after praising him in earlier talks. Pisco says, no, that team that was there all said that Shokin was bad. It is true that Saklavidides and other people said Shokin was bad. People like Telizhenko said, well, right, those people wanted to get him out because they wanted promotions, etc. Now, who knows what side's telling the truth? But it's not as clear cut that everyone at this meeting, there were people that were at that meeting that said they praise Shokin all the time. We were shocked. What are you talking about? Pisco says that's evidence that they want to get rid of Shokin. But it's also evidence that shows that you're incorrect when you say that all of these people that were at the meeting said, yeah, let's get rid of Shokin on the Ukrainian side. That's not true. We have at least one person saying they were shocked that this policy in January seemed to be markedly different than the policies that have been previous. And no one's disputing that there was a memo in November, as you heard I was just talking about, that suggested the firing of Shokin. The question is, the question is the quid pro quo. Saying that we would recommend that this guy be fired is different than saying, I am withholding $1 billion until you fire this guy. Yes or no? Is that different or not? Yes or no? So, for example, you could have a president come out and say, I recommend that this person not be the president of Hungary anymore. That's different than saying, and we will no longer give aid to this country unless this person is no longer the president of Hungary. Completely different. The accusation has always been, one, that there wasn't suggestion of firing Shokin until November, despite you and many other people's claims that all of these agencies wanted Shokin ousted as far as in April, which would have been a mere 2 months after he was put into office. And second, once there was suggestion that there should have been fired, that a State Department memo saying that he should be fired, Shokin should be fired, it was around November, which is right around the same time that we have the email from Burisma to Hunter Biden saying, we want you to focus on these key figures like Shokin talking to your assets in the United States with the ultimate goal of getting these cases dropped. Pisco says the Ukrainian gist reference was talking back to pressure from the U.S. State Department against Shokin. I don't understand. Does everyone see how duplicitous Pisco is? I do one further than Pisco. Unlike Pisco, I'm not a bad faith person. So I actually steelman the opposition's argument. This is an email in January. I am not disputing that there were people that were talking about wanting Shokin fired as early as November. I am disputing any evidence prior to, I believe November, maybe late October. I am disputing that I haven't seen any evidence whatsoever that there were people that wanted Shokin prior to that. So in November, we know that there was suggestion of firing. What we don't have is anyone suggesting this quid pro quo. We have a bunch of people talking about how this aid to Ukraine is very important, but we don't seem to have anyone in any of these writings, whether it be the European Union, the United States, the State Department, any of these organizations, we don't have any of them seeming to suggest a quid pro quo. So if I'm admitting that there were people talking in the State Department in November about wanting Shokin fired, why would it be that all of a sudden I'm hiding the fact that these people talked about Shokin in this January 12th email? I'm not hiding the fact. I'm saying that the very first line of the email says, yikes, I don't recall this coming up. The reason that he's saying yikes is because the quid pro quo wasn't brought up prior, despite what Pisco told you. He swore that it happened. He swore that it wasn't Biden, that this was standard policy, that all of these agencies wanted this quid pro quo. That's the point. I've asked for, as long as I've debated Pisco and others on this, show me the evidence. Show me the evidence. And he's like, well, here's an article in April, or an article that says in April that there was back talk from people in the European Union and the United States that wanted Shokin gone. Show me the evidence that people talked about a quid pro quo. I mean, I don't know what to say. I guess the audience could judge for themselves. On January 21st, U.S. Ambassador Ukraine Jeffrey Pyatt emailed Eric Ciaramella to the White House with an article from Ukrainian press that said U.S. loan guarantee conditional on Shokin's dismissal. Here's the subject. Quote, U.S. loan guarantee conditional on Shokin's dismissal. First line. Oh, sorry. I guess it'd help if I bring it up. First line. Yikes. I don't recall this coming up with our meeting with them on Tuesday. I say, that shows that Ciaramella was like, oh, I don't recall this quid pro quo. I don't recall that. Well, you just talked to the Ukrainians. I don't recall this quid pro quo. And when I say that, Pisco says, that's not what this says. That's not what this says. I don't see that. Yeah, I'll link it for you. Oops, sorry. Where's any evidence? We did discuss the fact that the PGOIG condition had not been met. We were impressed with the group. We had a 2-hour discussion for their priorities and obstacles they face. In yesterday's IPC, we agreed to come up with some policy regarding officials on the Shokin LG issue. So if we circle back with Europe, with EUR, I assume that's European Union, and their press folks to expedite the effort. We'll continue reading here. In a closed-door deposition in 2020, before the Senate, Pyatt sounded skeptical that Ciaramella was in the dark about the decision. I think you have to Eric about what he meant about yikes. He said he believed the conditioning on the loan guarantee and Chickel's removal obviously came up in those meetings. So Pyatt saying, actually, Ciaramella's wrong. In those very meetings, the quid pro quo was announced, suggesting that the Biden aides knew of the quid pro quo before Pyatt circulated the article about it. The day before he hosted the Ukrainian prosecutors, Ciaramella received an agenda from the State Department official that asked him to, quote, note the importance of appointing a new prosecutor general, reiterating that Shokin is an obstacle to reform, according to the emails. The agenda also called on Ciaramella to ask the delegate which high-level cases are on the docket for prosecution, which raises suspicions in some quarters that Biden's advisors were fishing for information about Shokin's plan for prosecuting Burisma oligarchs. Again, we know that when it came to talking about cases that they were upset about, the two cases that we hear that were referenced were these diamond prosecution cases and the Burisma case. Because England or the UK had withheld money from Burisma's owner, Zlochevsky, and were waiting for cooperation with the Ukrainian prosecutor by the name of Yarema. They claimed that they didn't get that cooperation, so they had to release the money. So there's a lot of talk in 2014 about the fact that this high-profile case wasn't being prosecuted. Now they're specifically asking, what high-profile cases are you looking into? In a January 21st email, Pyatt told Ciaramella to buckle in because he later explained... He later explained to Senate investigators the deal was a difficult issue and there was going to be political controversy. The former ambassador demurred when asked if conditioning the $1 billion on Shokin's firing was Biden's idea or it came from his office. It was our interagency policy, he testified, adding, I don't remember when the vice president would have weighed in on this. However, Pyatt allowed that it was a sudden change in policy. At the beginning, he said, it was not our expectation Shokin's removal would be necessary. Indeed, in October 1st, 2015 memo summarizing the recommendation of the Inter-Policy Committee on Ukraine, it stated, Ukraine has made sufficient progress on its anti-corruption reform agenda to justify a third loan guarantee. That was in October. Ciaramella was a member of that task force, which monitored Shokin's office. Now, again, if you listen to Pisco and others, they say no, long before that, this idea of a quid pro quo to get rid of Shokin, you can't give them the loan unless Shokin's gone. And yet we have their memos that were saying in October, sufficient process has been given to grant the third loan. The next month, moreover, the task force drafted a loan guarantee agreement that did not call for Shokin's removal. Then in December, Joe Biden flew to Kiev to demand his ouster. If what Ciaramella expressed in his email, which he knew would be part of the White House records, was a genuine reaction, it appears that Vice President Biden went against the recommendation of one of his top advisors. If Ciaramella were genuinely alarmed, he might have blown the whistle on the boss like he did to Trump, but he stayed mum. However, if on the other hand, Ciaramella was part of the quid pro quo discussion, as Pyatt suggested, then he had a direct conflict, noted Derek Harvey, a former congressional investigator involved in the first impeachment. Either way, Ciaramella clearly found himself in the middle of a major controversy. And that's the truth, which is what I started out saying. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. If he was involved in this quid pro quo, then blowing the whistle on Trump wanting an investigation of the quid pro quo would mean he would have to disclose that he was at the center of the would-be investigation, which meant that he had an incredible bias going into the situation. Pisco, I get it. Let's deal with Pisco here for a minute. One-line sentences. Let's see. They're saying it, yikes, to the public article. The government knew what Biden was doing, big dog. And your word, guys, they never got briefed. Your point is they are unaware of the conditioning. They were not. Only a dumbass would read the email that way. I'm not going to take insults from Pisco. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you a little about Pisco. Pisco is someone that I used to enjoy talking to because I thought he was at least someone who would be willing to go through these. He's one of the most bad faith, whiny pieces of shit that I've ever met. He literally is a scumbag who is a fucking cocksucker that deserves everything. A huge fucking cocksucker. Sorry about that, wife. Who deserves to be mocked and ridiculed in the strongest possible sense. Pisco is the type of person that says when Trump says go be peaceful, he knows that he should be charged because really it was a dog whistle to go be violent. He also says that he knows 100% Jamal Bowman, a person who he claimed would be impossible to say that he didn't believe when he pulled a fire alarm he intended it to go off. He knows that the document from the officer says that that's exactly what Bowman told that officer, which would be a lie, which Pisco has argued over and over again as a lie would be something that should be prosecuted. Pisco's argument is quite literally, Pisco, the reason I'm going off topic is because you decided to use personal insults and names to me. Now, this is the topic. The topic was you're calling me a dumbass. You're saying, what did you say? You called me a dingbat who's spreading trash. right? And so this is what he does. This is something that Pisco will do. He'll insult you and shit like that, like a tough guy behind his internet screen here, big tough guy lawyer. He's a lawyer, you know. He passed the bar. He finally did it. He did it. And so when I retort by talking about what a scumbag piece of shit he is, he goes, whoa, this is off topic. If you would have just kept it to, I think this is what this is being said, then I wouldn't have gone off on this tangent. But you decided to be at Purds. No, I'll retort. I will stay on topic. The topic right now is you calling me a dimbat, you saying that I'm bad, or you saying that I'm a dumbass, deciding to call me names. So I'll talk about who's a dumbass, who's bad faith. Now, Pisco knows he can't defend this. The reason this is relevant is this. When you're dealing with these complicated situations, no, this one isn't that complicated. When you're dealing with it, as someone who's an outsider, it might be difficult to decide which side is right. And so you're trying to parse through it. When you have one guy whose literal position is, I believe when Jamal Bowman said, I didn't intend for the alarm to go off, that he actually meant I did intend for the alarm to go off. That's who Pisco is. He can't defend it. He knows that's true. I have it on tape at least 2 times. He knows that's true. He absolutely knows it's true. Hey, Pisco, is it you tell me if that's correct or not. Is your argument not when Jamal Bowman testified, I didn't intend for the alarm to go off, that he really meant he did intend for it to go off? Now, the reason this is important is because it shows Pisco is so fucking bad faith and biased that he will just completely talk out his ass. He will 100% completely talk out his ass. Now, I was willing to discuss the topic at hand as I was doing, but if he wants to come in with insults and things like that, then we'll get back to that issue. Right, and now he has to deflect. My argument is you lied, you got called out, and you got nothing to say. I didn't lie. I did not lie. I have something to say. I have to say, when determining whether or not I lied, the way we look at it is see the accuser. The accuser that called names and things like that. We would look at their track record and we could see that they're a bad faith liar. We could see that's exactly who you are. You can't defend it. You can't. Pisco wants you to believe, and most of these things, he'll talk about terms like mens rea, and it's the intent of things that happen, like in the Trump impeachment and many of these other cases, mishandling of classified documents and things like that. But when it gets down to brass tacks, Pisco's argument is this: I know Trump's a bad, evil man. Therefore, I know his intent is always bad and he should be charged. And I know the Democrats are great people. So therefore, I know their intent is always great. So when you have someone say, I didn't intend for the alarm to go off when I pull it, and when you had Pisco say that would clearly be a lie, that's clearly bullshit. He said that. Before he knew that Bowman told this to the police, he said, that's clearly not possible. Clearly, a guy who's not an invalid would know pulling the alarm will trigger the alarm. It is absurd to say otherwise, right? Then when he finds out, and he also said many, many times that lying to law enforcement needs to be charged. It's a serious crime. Okay, dead to rights. Now, he could have, if he was good faith, said, yeah, you know what, you're right. You know, you're absolutely right. Bowman lied to law enforcement. That's clear as day. He absolutely clear to say there is no denying he lied to law enforcement. He should be charged. I guess that's bad he wasn't charged. But I don't know that that's the double standard that someone like you, Rob, would say that exemplifies that all these agencies have a double standard against Trump. He could have took that tactic. He could have, but he chose not to. He chose not to. That's what he did. That's what happened. And so he sacrifices all integrity. He exposes exactly who he is. He absolutely exposes himself. And his response when called out on, but why would I do this, Rob? Why would I do it? That's his only answer. That's his only answer. All conversations with Pisco, and it was someone that I really enjoyed talking with. Hey, Pisco, I was going to ask you if you wanted to come on the Tim Pool show with me. I was going to. But then after that bad faith horseshit, I was like, I don't want to interact in any way that could gain Pisco any sort of eyeballs on him whatsoever. I'll debate him when I feel like him, but he's literally a bad faith sack of shit. He's actually worse than debating the normal morons I debate, because it's even more worthless, because at least those normal morons might at least be saying things they actually believe. No, it's not your opinion. We're not talking about your opinion. You're literally saying, I know that it's impossible that Jamal Bowman thought that alarm wouldn't go off. He clearly did. But when he told police, I didn't intend for that alarm to go off, I choose to believe, in my opinion, that what he really meant was, I intended for the alarm to go off. I haven't brought you up in weeks. It's not that I'm acting offended. I was talking about the issue. You decided to call me names. I decided to call you names. No problem. Fine. You can't defend it. You can't. The actual reality of what people say is irrelevant to you and most other Trump haters. Trump says be peaceful. I know that what he really meant was be violent. Jamal Bowman says, I didn't intend for the alarm. I know what he meant was he did intend for the alarm. It literally means that any discussion with you is irrelevant because if we can't even have an agreement on what words mean, and not nebulous words like, high concept words like ideas like love, literal words like I didn't intend. You're like, oh, I assume that I didn't intend means I did intend. Then what's the point of a conversation? Now, I'll still do it when I feel like it, which is why I was talking to you when you came in, and I wasn't overtly hostile to you. In fact, I told myself at one time I was going to try to stop bringing up the Bowman stuff, even though I think that it is an insightful window into exactly who I'm dealing with. But when you wanted to come in and call me a dingbat and all of this shit, okay, then we'll set the stage. No problem. We'll set the stage, right? Now, to this email specifically, if you had been following what I said beforehand, I said there was one of two possibilities. Either A, that you could read this Ciaramella email to say, yikes, that he's like, oh shit, I didn't know about this. This is a new policy, which would prove that the argument that this was a quid pro quo that was developed by a bunch of people in these agencies was bullshit, which would raise the question why he didn't blow the whistle when he saw it occur. Or B, he actually was involved with the discussions of this quid pro quo and knew about it, which meant that he would be a central figure in a potential investigation into that quid pro quo, which would mean that's something that should have been disclosed in the impeachment hearing of Trump. That the central whistleblower was someone that would have been a target of the very conversation that Trump was having. The whole State Department... Pisco, do you think the State Department saves emails? Do you think they save emails? Do you think they save notes on their meetings? A simple yes, no will suffice. Now again, remember, Pisco will just lie if he thinks that it benefits him, so take everything he says here with a grain of salt. So there is a chance that despite the fact that anyone with half a brain would know that yes, of course, they take notes, they have emails, etc., there is a chance that Pisco could say no, they don't. If he thinks that that'll somehow benefit his argument, because he's not interested in telling the truth. But we know that they do. Okay, they have emails because of FOI, etc. Can you show me one time prior to Biden issuing his quid pro quo that we have any documentation anywhere talking about this quid pro quo? From the State Department, from Jeffrey Pyatt, from Ciaramella, anyone. Can you show me one piece of evidence? One. Where's the email? Sure, show me. Show it to me. Prior to Biden issuing the quid pro quo, show me the email that suggested the quid pro quo. Go ahead. I could show you evidence of people that were on the plane with Biden that said it was Biden himself on the plane that came up with the quid pro quo. And I've shown you that evidence, and you still say, nah, that's not good enough. So show me the emails. I could be wrong. Perhaps you have the emails. Be happy to see it. Unlike you. No. That is not saying that we condition the guarantee of the loan. In fact, you're talking about the October memo, correct? Yes, of course it said corruption in the PGO. That is different than saying fire this one prosecutor or you don't get the loan. Nowhere does anything say fire Viktor Shokin. The entire conversation from the time they were talking about these loans talked about corruption within this office. Nowhere did it say fire Viktor Shokin or you don't get this money. Show me it saying it. Show me anywhere that conversation was had. Now, if I provide evidence that from someone who was literally on the plane with Biden saying it was Biden himself that came up with this, Pisco will just ignore it. He'll say that man is lying. That is a lie. Talking about Shokin needed to go, we talked about the November memo. Yes, November, around the same time that we have communications that came in from, what's his name, Vadim, who's like the secretary of Burisma, around that same time that he was emailing saying, hey, Hunter, Devin, we need you to reach out about key figures in the United States and in Ukraine, such as the IG, Shokin, the prosecutor general, with the ultimate idea of closing down this case. Yes, in that November time, we then did start to see the State Department release a memo that said that Shokin needed to go. Show me in that memo where it says Shokin needs to go, so we shouldn't give the loan. We should issue a quid pro quo. Show me in the memo. Show me. Now, again, this has been central to the defense of Pisco and these people on the left for years. This has been central to the defense. No, it wasn't that Joe Biden came up with this quid pro quo. This was agreed upon policy by everyone. And yet, they have been unable to provide one piece of evidence. That evidence may exist. I'm not telling you that I'm clairvoyant, that I could know what every piece of evidence. I don't know. What I'm saying is, we don't have any evidence of that, and yet people like Pisco have asserted with absolute positive 100%, nope, it wasn't Biden that came up with it. It wasn't. And yet they could provide no evidence. None. You have the platform, Pisco. Provide the evidence. Let's see it. Now, here's his chance. He could shut me up. And if he does, I'll be like, fuck yeah, there, okay. There's a piece of evidence. Let's see it. Now, am I still not talking about the case? Is that what I'm doing? I addressed your smug attacks of me. Perhaps I swore a little more. Now my wife left the room. She's not happy with that. He's about to link the evidence. I hope so. See, I'm actually interested in getting to the truth of these situations, which is one of the reasons I like talking to Pisco, because we could actually go back and forth on this shit. The problem is I now realize I can't trust anything Pisco says because of things like the Jamal Bowman situation. You'll never see me do that. Pisco has every opportunity to say, but Rob, what I did with Jamal Bowman's very similar to what you did. He can't do that. Because I'll admit when I'm wrong. I'll admit when I'll be like, yeah, that looks bad for this and that. I absolutely will. He can't do that. Now, I'm not surprised. This is a person who was in law school the first time I talked to him. And I asked him a simple question. I said, do you think that a FBI should attempt to verify information before they use it to get a FISA warrant to spy on an American? And Pisco gave me a 4 or 5 minute runaround instead of just saying, yeah, of course. Here we go. Here's Pisco. Now, Pisco had plenty of opportunity to present evidence. Let's see what the evidence says. Let's what he says. He says, yeah, there's a conflict between what Biden's advisor says and what the State Department officials say where it originated. Testimony of Kent said it originated with the ambassador's office. Others say Biden made the decision. But the decision to pressure Shokin's firing occurred before. Cool. Show me the evidence. Show me the evidence of the quid pro quo before. Thanks, BB Maria 34. Or you could just admit. You could try to save a little face to say, yeah, you're right, Rob. I haven't seen any evidence. You could be in here for the age. I would recommend you be 18 or older, but I don't think there's going to be anything that would be too bad. If you're a young child, there's probably not anything that would interest you in this stream. Now, Pisco has the chance right now. He has the chance to say, you're right, Rob. I haven't seen it. Or he could present it. Now, give Pisco a little, I'll defend him a little here. First off, I went a little hyperbolic. He's not the worst person in the world. So maybe I shouldn't have dropped as many F-bombs. Little heat of the moment there. But again, I would have loved nothing more. When I went on Tim Pool's Culture War show, the entire idea was I was supposed to debate someone. And I shit you not, my preference of who I would have wanted to debate, even before, well, that's not, I would have loved to debate the Krasensteins. That was my first option. Would have loved them. I'd love to debate like Cenk Uygur, Sam Cedar. But because I've debated Destiny so many times and he's been on, that was one of the things Tim Pool's show said to me. They're like, it would be interesting to have you debate Destiny, but we're trying to get new voices. I said, I guarantee you, I would have been like, how about this guy I know, Pisco? I think we have good conversations. I think that he's up on the information. I think the audience really, I would never suggest doing something like that with Pisco now. I never would, after his bad faith examples. Okay, Pisco, now remember, Pisco's either going to show us evidence of this quid pro quo, or he's going to admit, I haven't seen that evidence. Let's see what Pisco says. 2 decisions. Decision to get rid of Shokin happened before evidence that you've acknowledged. That's right, I've acknowledged. Okay. It's inconclusive as whose decision it was to specifically condition as a quid pro quo. The advisor says Biden made the ultimate decision. Kent says the ambassador. All right. So then you're admitting, can I just get a yes? I get you to say, yes, you're right, Rob. I've never seen evidence that anyone prior to Biden suggested the quid pro quo to fire Shokin. Okay, BB, see him? But that's the truth about the Tim Pool show. And then I'll even go a step further. One of the people that was like the behind the scenes people at Tim Pool show, when I came on, he said one of the reasons that he himself recommended me to Tim was him seeing me debate Pisco. True story. First person I met at Tim Pool's show brought up Pisco. No, that's not proof. That's not him post hoc saying, you're right, it's evidence, right? Evidence would be he said it. What I've told you, and you know this from the whole time, is yes, there were people afterwards that said, no, people before Biden suggested it. But you've already admitted that they keep detailed records. So show me a record before the date in December when Biden suggested the quid pro quo of someone else suggesting it. Of course, people could afterwards say, no, trust me, I suggested it. Trust me, this other guy suggested it. We just don't have anything in writing or any audio or anything that ever proves that. But just take my word for it. Show me the evidence. You don't have it. I know it. You know it. Everyone in the audience that's remotely seen me and you debate. And this has been the case over and over. No, the evidence, that's true. That's true. Well, I have one really good piece of Joe Biden saying it. Joe Biden admitting that he said it. I also have evidence after the fact of someone saying it was Joe Biden himself that came up with it. So we know for a fact Joe Biden at one point said it. Right? That's pretty fucking so. Do you disagree with that? Yes, we all know he said it. Right. So the question is, who came up with it? Biden said in his own words, basically, he came up with it. Right? He didn't use those words, but if you listen to his speech on the Council on Foreign Relations, he's like, I got there and I was like, blah, blah, blah. Like it was him. It was his decision. That's clearly what he's implying. We have at least one of his assistants that said, yes, it was him. The whole point was, up until that plane ride, up until it was said, there is nowhere in writing anywhere where that seems to be suggested. Nowhere. I do not have 100% proof that it was Biden that came up with it, which is what I've admitted as such, which is why I said there could be evidence. I'm not clairvoyant. Yes, that's absolutely true. The problem for you is the impetus is on you. When the defense of this quid, because anyone who's good faith, which again, you're not. I understand you're not. So I have to change my calculus. You have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that you will lie in the most blatant of ways. When that guy Democrat said, I didn't intend for the alarm to go off, what he really meant was he did intend. Anyone who will so brazenly sell out and lie is clearly showing that they're not good faith. So I have to take that into my calculation when I communicate with you, because I know it does not matter. Nothing that could ever be said will change your mind because you're not a good faith actor. So I have to, right? The burden is not on me. The burden's not on me to show corruption, because the burden's on me to show that there was enough here that warranted an investigation and scrutiny, including at a bare minimum an interview of Joe Biden himself, and having the FBI investigate these people under oath, all of these people, which did not occur. What I was saying is anyone that's good faith would be able to acknowledge the following statement. We should not have a system where prominent politicians are using U.S. tax dollars to force the firing of prosecutors that are at least on paper looking into their families' businesses. Simple. We'll get to that, Kavion. That's it. That's a simple statement. Anyone of good, it doesn't matter if your name's Trump, if your name's Bush, if your name's Biden, if your name's Obama, if your name's Pelosi, it does not matter. We can't have a system where people are using huge sums of U.S. tax dollars to force the firing of individual prosecutors that are looking into their families' businesses. We can't have that. Isn't it you that said you didn't want your roles defined by the specific conduct at issue? I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. This has been my stance for years. Do you disagree with that statement, Pisco? It has nothing to do with defining it. So the concept behind that would be we can't have tax dollars being used. It is a conflict of interest for an official to use tax dollars to force the firing of prosecutors that are looking into businesses they're associated with or businesses their families associated. Do you agree or disagree? Simple. That is a very reasonable stance. If Donald Trump would have said, hey, we're not going to give you money that was on the books that Congress voted for, India, unless you fire this prosecutor that's looking into my son's business, I would say, that's fucking outrageous. This needs to be looked into immediately. Would you not say the same? I notice you keep deflecting. It's a very simple question. It is a conflict of interest for a prominent U.S. official to use tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor looking into companies that their family has stake into. All right. Pisco still can't. Does everyone see it? Does everyone see this? Does everyone see? He can't just say, yeah, that's reasonable, of course, because he's not good faith. Because this is how Pisco's looking at this situation. Well, that sounds reasonable. However, I know that this would be an attack on Biden, so I can't admit it because it's not even that I like Biden, it's that I hate Trump. And if I show that there's a potential double standard and Trump was onto something, that this was something that was corrupt and needed to be investigated, then that would look good for Trump. And we can't have that. We need to take Orange Man down no matter what. And so instead, I'll come up with some deflection instead of just saying, of course, that's reasonable. So let's read what Pisco wrote now. He says, there was an appearance of a conflict of interest. It was problematic, not proof of corruption in multiple investigations, including contemporary FCPA criminal investigation. And Zlochevsky have failed to produce any evidence of corruption. There's a difference between a conflict of interest and appearance of a conflict of interest. Both are bad, but they are different. Did they interview Biden? I heard there was an Israeli attack a few minutes ago. Did they interview Biden? Did they interview Hunter? Did they subpoena under oath? Did they do that? Did they approach them like they approached Michael Flynn? Did they? Just curious. Oh, they didn't. They didn't. What was their investigations? Well, we looked into Zlochevsky and we didn't see that he bribed any. Allegedly, they had a bribery investigation into Zlochevsky. Now, we actually know that somehow that U.S. FBI bribery investigation into Zlochevsky apparently didn't yield any fruit, though we absolutely know through audio that Zlochevsky was in fact bribing people and suggested a bribe to the president of Ukraine, Poroshenko. The investigation wasn't into whether or not Zlochevsky was bribing. The investigation was whether or not Joe Biden's quid pro quo was done with the intent or partial intent to personally benefit his family. And the bare minimum you would do would be to interview Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and the people at Blue Star, but they didn't. Imagine that scenario again. Trump comes out and says, we're not going to give this congressional approved tax dollars to India until they fire this prosecutor that's looking into the company that my son's on the board of directors. And the FBI is like, well, we looked at that company. We looked at the leader of that company and we investigated them and we didn't see anything. Pisco would be like, did they interview Trump? Did they interview his son? You know that's what Pisco would say. He'd be right to say it. Nah, they didn't. They just said, well, there you go. Pisco can't answer. Look, I shouldn't have yelled as much as I did. I do think you're bad faith. I stand by everything I've said since then. I should not have engaged so hyperbolically in response to the names. It doesn't affect me that much. In the moment, it pisses me off just because I used to like talking to you so much. And I do truly mean this, Pisco. I talked to my wife honestly about potentially reaching out to you and being like, listen, man, you should try to come on the pin, because it would have been better for me as well. Because what ended up happening was Benjamin Weingarten, it was good, but he agreed with me, and that's not fun. The whole point of that podcast is supposed to have a debate, and Tim's supposed to moderate it. So I thought about it, but I can't ever do it. I can't do that. I would never help you out by platforming you in a space like that, because you are so self-evidentiary bad faith. And it's a fucking shame, man. It really is. I hope you got a lot out of that. I hope you got a lot out of that Bowman shit. I do. You asked me when you had nothing to say, when you had absolutely nothing to say about it, and your only defense is, but why would I say this? I don't know. But so I hope you got what you needed out of it. But maybe you'll get invited on Tim Pool's show without me, which would be fine. I don't mind that, but I'm not going to be. You don't do it because you truly care about the country. That's not true. Well, that might be true. That I can't say that. You might truly care about the country and think that Donald Trump's an evil Nazi, and so he needs to be taken down by any means necessary. And if that means having to blatantly lie and misrepresent things and be bad faith, so be it, because the higher moral virtue is stopping Donald Trump. And you might want to do that because you think he's a legitimate threat to the country. That could be true. But for the context of having a good faith debate to discuss whether or not Trump is that evil, it becomes irrelevant because you've already made up your mind and you have built into the cake that it's okay to be bad faith and lie if that means advancing your ultimate goal. That's it. And you could say, yeah, but I do that because I love the country. True. That could be true. No, I am right about the... Pisco, we're talking about something very specific about the Jamal Bowman thing. I'm absolutely 100% correct. Anyone remotely object, 99 out of 100 people, if they didn't know the characters involved, if they didn't know if there was a Republican, Democrat, etc., if they saw that exchange of what you said, what I said, and what we know was written down by the police report of what Jamal Bowman said, they would say, the dude that is saying that the literal words on the paper mean the opposite of what was said is clearly wrong. That they're clearly wrong. It might not be intentional. It might not be intentional. You might have such an implicit hatred of Trump that it makes you so irrational that you literally look at words and say, these words mean the opposite of what they actually said. There's no need for another debate on it. You have nothing to say. There's nothing to add to it. There's nothing. What can you possibly say? You literally, and notice, anyone who's watching that wonders, there's video of this, even it's, right? It was on the Crucible. We debated several times where this came up. There's video of it. There's no denying it. I'm not going to delete the video. Pisco knows that. Notice that he's not denying. That's exactly what he did. He said, yeah, the order of operations is as follows. He was telling people in his audience, being reasonable, that like, listen, those of you that are saying that Bowman didn't intend for this alarm to go off, that's garbage. This is an adult man who has a base level of intelligence. Hell, he used to be a principal. He knows how fire alarms work. You know, if you pull the fire alarm, it's probably going to ring a fire alarm. So that's ridiculous, right? And then forget all the stuff around it. But that was a reasonable thing that you're saying to audiences that are making an absurd defense of Jamal Bowman. And then, because it was detrimental to Trump and his team, you quite frequently talked about, well, charges against Michael Flynn were justified because lying to law enforcement is serious. And charges against Papadopoulos was justified because lying to law enforcement is serious. So you had well been on record with me, yes, absolutely, we should charge people that lie to law enforcement. Okay. Well, then it's the nail in the coffin. Once the document comes out that shows Jamal Bowman said what you said would be impossible, I didn't intend for that alarm to go off. And you've already admitted that lying to law enforcement's a serious crime, so you're stuck. So if you're good faith, you would say, yeah, okay, he lied. But you took a different tactic. You said, well, I think when he said, I didn't intend for the alarm to go off, I did intend for the alarm to go off. Just the local alarm. I mean, I didn't intend for the global alarm to go off. Yep, see you, Pisco. Anyways, back to the Ciaramella stuff. Stop swearing, Rob. The reason I'm saying stop swearing is, one, because I should stop swearing because I have a son now and I don't want him swearing. So even though he's not here today, as a thing of habit, I need to stop doing it. The other thing is Black Elk, who's editing for me, is considering editing out the swear words, and that's just more work for him, so I should try not to do that. But you could see it there with Pisco. So to talk then specifically on this Burisma, I actually think Pisco makes a reasonable point here. Now, in the moment of talking about this yikes thing, I'm reading through it, and it looks really bad. But upon thinking, the key thing that Pisco said there, and I think that's important, is that this email where he says yikes is January 21st, and Biden's quid pro quo is in December. Now, if this had been 3-4 days after Biden's quid pro quo, I could believe that Ciaramella didn't hear about it. But it does seem difficult to believe that people in the State Department a month later hadn't heard about it yet. And so it does seem like the yikes would be, there is a news article about this. However, it doesn't help the case because, as I illustrated at the beginning, either Ciaramella was involved in the quid pro quo, he knew that it occurred, was intimately involved, covered up for it, or supported it, etc., or he was shocked by it. And either way, it looks bad for a whistleblower that's going after Trump for looking into it. It's true. That's why there's still utility in talking to people like Pisco, because you could still, when someone challenges you, it forces you to look at things more critically, look at the dates, things like that, try to get a better understanding of the story. That's why I like talking. But he is bad faith. It is absolutely true. Where were we? Just 2 weeks prior, White House... Just weeks prior, White House photos indicate that Ciaramella traveled with Biden on the same December 2015 Air Force Two flight. The president took to Kiev to threaten the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to act Shokin. Republicans have accused Biden of pushing Shokin's ouster to block scrutiny of his son's actions. Quote, Biden called an audible and changed U.S. policy towards Ukraine to benefit his son on the plane ride to Ukraine, House Oversight Committee Comer said, and later bragged about withholding a U.S. loan guarantee if the Ukraine didn't fire the prosecutor. Biden and his supporters have repeatedly claimed Shokin had to go because he wasn't cracking down on corruption, and everyone else in the administration as well as Europe agreed Shokin should be fired. This remains the prevailing narrative in major U.S. media. But around that time, Shokin had conducted a raid of Burisma Zlochevsky's home, seizing his car's assets, etc. In fairness, that was after the quid pro quo. IRS agent Ziegler, who examined Hunter's emails as part of the investigation for tax evasion, said Shokin was identified as, quote, a key target in emails exchanged between Hunter and the Burisma officials in November 2015. The month before the travel to Ukraine to demand Shokin's removal. Just days before Biden arrived in Kiev in early December 2015, a demand Shokin's ouster, Hunter allegedly called his father from Dubai meeting where a Burisma official, Vadim, will say, who asked him to pressure his father to shut down Shokin's investigation. Vice President Biden was familiar with Vadim, having met with him in the April 2015 dinner at Cafe Milano. The unstated goal was to have the Ukrainian prosecutor removed in an effort to close the criminal case against Zlochevsky, Ziegler said in a recent testimony for the House impeachment inquiry. After Shokin was pushed out of office, the Burisma investigation dried up. Ciaramella tried to marshal a defense for Biden in the whistleblower complaint he sent to Schiff in August 2019. He listed among Trump's concerns at the time of the fateful July phone call that, quote, the former Vice President Biden had pressured Poroshenko in 2016 to fire Shokin in order to quash a purported criminal probe into Burisma's holdings. But Ciaramella attempted to pour cold water on the notion by referencing a Bloomberg News article that quoted former senior Ukrainian prosecutor who falsely claimed that Mr. Shokin was not investigating Burisma at the time of his removal in 2016. White House emails revealed that Ciaramella was looped into messages sent by Biden's communication teams, who were concerned that Hunter Biden had taken a position to corrupt on Burisma's board, created unseemly optics, and undercut their boss's mission. In a December 8, 2015 email, for example, Biden's communications director, Kate Benningfield, copied Ciaramella on a link to a New York Times article headlined, "The Knotty Ties Between Joe Biden and His Son in Ukraine." Benningfield is quoted in the story authored by James Horizon, denying Hunter Biden traveled with his father to Ukraine in an attempt to downplay his influence. She also said Ukrainian officials never raised the concern to Burisma. At the time, Burisma was paying Hunter, who had no energy experience, 1 minute. We already talked about this. Harvey, who served as a staff investigator for the Republican side of the House Intelligence Committee, said in 2019 impeachment hearings, "The Biden impeachment inquiry should compel Ciaramella to testify, since we now know he was involved in communication about Biden using the $1 billion in aid to extort Ukraine into firing Shokin." Harvey said Ciaramella would make a valuable material witness against Biden in the probe, which centers on whether Biden used his White House clout or political influence on behalf of his son's foreign paymasters. White House photos indicate Ciaramella took notes during his meetings with Biden, his staff, and Ukrainian officials, materials that lawmakers could subpoena along with his testimony. Another former staff investigator noted Ciaramella is no longer protected by federal whistleblower laws. He left the government and now works as a senior fellow, blah, blah, blah. None of the whistleblower protections apply. That's about it. So the guy that was the whistleblower was intimately involved with covering up for the quid pro quo, or saying that the quid pro quo was okay. So he definitely had skin in the game of not wanting it criminally investigated. Israel apparently attacked 7 cities in Iran. This is after Iran responded to previous attack in their embassy. Man, thank God the adults are back in charge, right? Let's see what we can find of this. The adults are in charge. Man, the way people were chirping on my chat here, I thought it'd be all over X, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, Michael Tracy says, "I guess Israel and Iran exchanging direct missile fire for the first time ever is what the adults in the room in the Biden administration meant when they assured us they're diligently deterring the war." Yeah. So we'll talk about this. Leave the United States out of it for a minute. The fact that Israel struck Iran in Syria, resulting in Iran retaliating sort of half-assed, or maybe that's all they were capable of, but whatever. Is this fair? Is this fair to anyone watching? The attack Iran issued on Israel wasn't devastating. I'm not saying, listen, I'm not downplaying that any missile that hits and blows up one building and kills a person, that personally affects you, obviously. But I just mean in the grand scheme of things, Iran's attack didn't screw Israel that bad. Alley Cat disagrees? Was I misled? Was this a devastating attack on Israel, or are you just saying it was Iran's best effort? Yeah, that's what it looked like to me, Smacky. Now, maybe not. Maybe it was. I don't claim to be an expert on the munitions of Iran. I'm interested to hear Alley Cat's clarification. Yeah, that's what okay, so you're agreeing with me. So if they did an attack to save face, and now I know this is early, and let me clarify, you have to be careful when you're just hearing things in the real moment, right? That's absolutely true, right? Everyone understands that. So the situation could change. Thanks for the super chat. Donating the Rob Noerr instead of using my money to support my 7 kids. Based. Thank you. Buy ramen noodles for the little guys. But it appears from my quick reading that this attack seems I guess I can't say that. Does this seem like a serious attack by Israel? That like hit serious military targets or did serious damage? Or does this also look like a show of force? I'm not saying there's a right answer. I have no clue, so I'm just legitimately asking. I don't know, Spanky King. I think Israel has way too much influence in our country. But I don't think that they influence everything as so many other people do. The question I'm asking people is, based on, you guys have been looking at this a little longer than me. IDF took out radar sites in Syria and Iraq. I don't think any of us are military experts here, but in our estimations, and we certainly, obviously, none of us have huge amounts of access to information. Yeah, it seems like people are saying this is pretty serious. So just let's operate under that assumption. Iran's attack was either just a show of force to save face, or even if it was a serious attempt, it wasn't that devastating to Israel. And Israel's counterattack seems to be, an initial reading, more serious. That it actually is achieving something. Let's operate under that assumption for a minute. What would Iran have to do back then? Yeah, well, I agree with that, of course. If Iran had to launch, based on saving face for this attack in Syria and Iranian installations, they had to launch an attack to save face, don't they have to counterattack now? In a more serious fashion? Doesn't it have to escalate? I guess the only reason it wouldn't escalate is if Iran just knows they're shit out of luck and they can't do anything, so they'll just cower. But I don't know that that's the case. I don't think that is the case. So for someone who doesn't want to see escalation in World War III, I guess the question I have is, this seems to make escalation far more probable, like even further escalation more probable. Nah, don't even joke about that shit. My audience is fantastic because they're not the type of audience that's going to go do shitty things to individuals that I would massively disagree with. It's all right, soldier. No big deal. I know you're just joking. The U.S. shouldn't be involved in funding either side of this. They shouldn't be. I stand by that. I'm just saying, regardless of what your beliefs are in this conflict or anything, purely from I just don't want people to die. I don't want a war to get out of hand. This seems like a bad development. I'm not even talking about the political calculus. Like, what's this look like for Biden? This seems bad. Won't be a vodka on YouTube. All right, a little swearing. A VOD. Yeah, it'll be up on YouTube. Yeah, absolutely. Pretty crazy. You know what's crazy? I titled my video January 6th, and we haven't even got to it because I spent my time arguing with Pisco. What's my beverage of choice? Man, I used to be an alcoholic, so I enjoyed thoroughly rum and cokes. That was my drink. If I'm drinking straight whiskey, I wasn't a wealthy man, so I preferred Jack Daniels if I was just drinking straight whiskey and had a little bit of loot. Most of the time I was buying cheap stuff and mixing, though. So rum and coke was what I probably drank most often. And then beers, as far as beers went, I used to drink like shitty ice beers because they were cheaper. But I don't drink much anymore. So my beverage of choice now is Capri Sun. I do apologize for. I shouldn't have lost my cool and swore as much as I did. Bud Light. I'm definitely a big Bud Light guy. I'll show you the beer I have right now. What are you doing? Hey, you! I didn't even realize you were here. Hi. Ha ha ha. Court, where are you at? Courtney. Courtney. Come here. My other dog, Annabelle, she's just laying in a blanket right behind me. I didn't even know she was here. Oh, wait. I'm not going to go to the fridge. Dog's in the way. I'm not going to move her. Moosehead Lager is what I have in my fridge right now. So, where's the Canadians at, right? Yeah, dogs are great, man. My dogs. Come here, Annabelle. She's not going to make it much longer. Annabelle, come here. Annabelle. Probably got over $1,000 into Annabelle's treatments, and it's not working. She's got huge lumps that are growing on her now, but they can't surgically remove them because of her liver enzymes. So they did a scan of her liver, and it's not confirmed it's cancer. They're like, we could do a biopsy, and it's going to cost you a bunch of money. But, yeah, it's not looking good. And she's 13, so she's old. And it's sad, it really is. But we're trying our best, to keep open-minded about it. Who knows? Maybe she's not in pain. She's still energetic, less energetic, but still energetic. And at this point, we just keep taking her back to the vet, and they test her blood work, and they're like, the blood work's not good. We can't operate. Come back next month. And then you pay like a $250 bill. Then you go back. So I think the best thing to do is keep her comfortable, and until she's massively in pain, then maybe we'll evaluate, change circumstances. But right now she's happy and she's comfortable, it seems. So a little more human food here and there, cheeseburger here and beef jerky there, things like that. And I hope she's enjoying it. But she's special because I like Dorothy a lot too. You saw Dorothy, she's a cool dog. Annabelle's special though because I got Annabelle like 6 months after dating Courtney. And so basically my entire relationship with my wife, I've had this dog. And for a long time it was just us three. And then we got Dorothy. Dorothy's 4 or 5. So imagine that. You're Annabelle like, who's this interloper? It's just been us three our whole lives. And then we got Hank. And so you feel bad because Annabelle was the baby. She's 3 amigos. And now, obviously Hank gets more attention. And, but, I'm not going to dwell negatively on it. I think about it and it's sad. But I've been lucky to have the time I've had. I think she's had a good life. And she also has the ability to really piss you off. Even now, you have to be like I'm trying to treat her as normal as possible. So she's been doing this thing. She's smart enough now to knock over the garbage can and then get into it. So you always catch her dragging garbage in the floor. You're like, what are you doing, Annabelle? But you try to yell a little less because you're like, well, let her party. Many officials and outlets are claiming that all the explosions heard tonight are due to interceptions and no explosions have occurred on the ground. I'll be honest with you. I think the best case scenario is that Israel also just saved face with a show of force. and there wasn't extensive damage in Iran. That's what I'll be hoping for. Now, I have a lot to say, and once I know more about it, maybe I could run a political calculus of, Joe Biden. Remember, one of the things when I talk to people, a lot of people said that the number one issue for why they would prefer Joe Biden over Trump was foreign policy. Who in their right mind could argue that foreign policy has been better under Joe Biden? I mean, the world is aflame. Who could even attempt to argue it? All they could say is, yeah, but it's Trump's fault. But objectively, if you look at the world situation right now, vis-a-vis like how it looks for the United States versus how it looked in 2019, 2020, it's not even close. We had historic peace deals in the Middle East. Now we have, for the first time ever, Iran and Israel striking each other. Closer to World War III there than we've ever seen. Russia invades Ukraine. Close to World War III there. China, more aggressive towards Taiwan. It's really insane. Yeah, I talked to Alec. I don't know if you heard me say yesterday. I was talking to these fucking DeSantis Trump haters, and they were like, why would you suggest Trump? And I was like, well, for one, I think that Biden has a better chance of leading us into like a World War III scenario. And they told me, these are Republicans, they would rather have World War III than Trump. Aftershock was on the damn space call with me when it was said. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? Am I setting up a weight loss goal for the end of the year? Yeah, I don't think you're wrong, Keelan. I think that, unfortunately, this is my gut feeling. I'll be honest. I think Trump's better foreign policy-wise because of his unpredictability. And there's a lot of reporting that I actually believe that actually, John, when we heard about, you remember when it was like, what was it? 13 intelligence agencies all said that Russia interfered in the election to help Trump. Well, then it turned out that was basically just a memo that was written by the CIA and basically by like 4 people under the direction of John Brennan. And then we basically had whistleblowers come out and was like, actually, the evidence we were looking at was saying that Putin preferred Hillary. And one of the reasons, the big reason that was given is because they're predictable. And Trump wasn't predictable. And so if you're considering taking some sort of action, you might think Trump's an unhinged lunatic and he might just ignore it. He might respond in the most aggressive of way. You just don't know. Whereas Obama and Biden and Hillary, it's like, well, you kind of know. You kind of know what's going on. The U.S., and then add on top of that sort of the incompetence crisis in not just with Biden, but in our leadership positions. One of the things I applaud Biden for heavily is pulling out of Afghanistan. I actually think he absolutely gets positive marks made for doing that. The way in which it was accomplished was a disaster. It was abjectly horrible. Just absolutely indefensible. For reasons that I've talked about over and over again. But he did pull out. Effort good, but the way it was done was bad. And it also signaled a massive incompetence and weakness in the United States, which I think served to embolden our enemies. In addition to that, I think Biden sort of being more pro-NATO and pro sort of this global order that they've established for so long, I think that agenda is a signal to countries that are oppositional to the United States like Russia and China. We have to strike soon. They're going to keep encroaching. They're going to keep whittling away. Now's the time to strike. There's weakness, etc. So they're going to push now. I think that's what's going on. I think with Trump, there was some holdout of hope that he was a maverick and maybe they could work with him in certain ways. And Trump actually talked positively of a lot of these terrible dictators. And on one hand, you could say, but that's a bad thing. But on the other hand, I would argue, maybe not. Maybe assuaging their ego could lead to possibly less violent outcomes. So I think there's a legit, I predicted. I remember I debated Dylan Burns like the night before the election. And Dylan's big issue's foreign policy. And we talked a lot about China. And I said, listen, he said, oh, Biden's going to be strong. He'll be strong in foreign policy. He'll deter our enemies. And I specifically remember talking about China, Taiwan. I said, okay, if Biden gets elected and then it turns out that China's emboldened with Taiwan, would you admit that that was a mistake, that it was a failure? He's like, I wouldn't go that far. Well, how do we judge it then? All I know is it's clear that the people that run this country in the Republican and Democrat Party both want escalation. They do. And that's not comforting. Every time they put their nose in these situations, it's worse for the people on the ground in these countries, it's worse for the people around the world, and it's worse for the American citizens. Every time. It's really beneficial to the people that make weapons. It's really beneficial to the lobbyists that get to go in and redevelop these countries. Really beneficial to them. They're loving it. They're working out like gangbusters. But it's not good for you. It's not good for the people in Ukraine. It's not good for the people in Palestine. It's not good for the people in Israel. It's not good for the people in Russia. It's not good for all the people in Europe. But I'm naive. When I said from both these situations, the United States shouldn't be funding any of it. The only thing they should be trying to do is have a peaceful resolution, trying to bring people to negotiate. That's naive. That's impossible. Okay. Isn't it weird how all this stuff I said, particularly in Ukraine, Russia, ends up coming to fruition? I told them years ago. I'll tell you. Spoiler alert. You want to know how the story ends? Turns out the people that in the United States and the intel agencies, military, etc., that claim to really care about the people of Ukraine don't give a shit about them. And eventually, just like the people of Afghanistan, they'll say, well, we're out of here. Good luck to you. And when we look at when the dust settled, it will be the people of Ukraine that have suffered the most. And they'll be left there holding the bag going, but wait, what about us? Too late. It's might be 2 years, might be 5 years, might be 10 years, might be 20 years. That'll be the end of the story. 90% sure. Yeah, I'll do an election special series, of course. I'm going to try to get some good guests for my 24-hour show. I think I'll be able to work that out this time, too. Get some big names, hopefully. Yeah, that's right. All right, I'm going to wrap up here. I'd like to be done by 11. So here's the deal. I do apologize for swearing. Not because it was swearing at Pisco, though it was a little hyperbolic. Listen, it's so stupid to say, but I enjoyed talking to Pisco so much previously that it is still a sore spot for me that he's just so bad faith. It's so I let it get under my skin a little more than it should. So I should cool it with that. But also I apologize for swearing to my editor, Black Elk, because it's more work for him, so I'm sorry for that. And also for you all. I think that it's okay to be animated and stuff like that, but that was maybe a bit much more than I normally do. Steve Kornacki impression. So, yeah, Black Elk's the man. If I could implore you all, please go to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be trying to put videos up every day at noon or 5 p.m., at least every weekday. Most of those are just going to be clips from the live stream. So if you watch the live stream, it might not be stuff that's new to you. But what I'll ask you is, if you could just give a thumbs up. I think, not just for me, though I appreciate it. The entire idea is, it's difficult to grow my channel when I'm doing just 3-hour, 4-hour live streams, 6 hours, 7 hours last night. It's difficult to grow the channel in that way. So I need to have some consistent short form stuff. And I think clipping out from the live stream is an easy way to do that. So thank you so much, TL. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Kavion, I get it both ways. I'm too respectful and then I'm too much of an asshole. I get it. The other thing is, it would help Black Elk as well. And I think he's incredibly generous. People like Aftershock, Black Elk, Syrian's Bot on X, they've done a lot to promote my channel, and they deserve credit for it too. And Black Elk's putting this time in every single day. SummerSlam live stream. I won't be live streaming it. Maybe we'll do results. So, he's putting in that work. He really is. Putting in that work to edit that. And so it'd be a shame if he's putting in all that work and it gets 15 views. So I'm hoping we could grow that for not just my sake, primarily my sake, but also for his sake as well. Let's find someone to raid. I think BPF's actually, is he debating? Oh, he's on whatever right now. That's not going to help me though, is it? Yeah, I should have reviewed that debate, but what can I say? I'm so tired, man. I was up late last night. Oh, here's the other thing. Someone asked me about weight loss. So I am absolutely committed to losing weight, and I am going to lose weight.
It's $40 just came out.
And I don't mind people picking on me and whatever
today.
Until I lose that weight. That's fine. However, I pulled this muscle in my back, and it's been killing me for like 2 months, and it's getting worse. Like, I could not sleep last night. I just couldn't. And it's weird because it doesn't hurt me sitting here. It hurts me when I stand up. It hurts me when I twist. So I like sleep on my side in bed. So when I move, it hurts. And I don't know what to do. I rarely get a day off to try to set up a doctor appointment, but I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I've not been to the doctor in years and years and years. I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I'm not going to take any pain medication more than like aspirin, Aleve, Tylenol. But I could start eating better. There's no excuse for that. I'm not eating terribly, but I could eat better. But I gotta get this fixed before I start. Before I start like working out. I do. So hopefully it's something that'll start to get better here. But it's really a bummer. Yeah, it's not like, listen, like my poor brother lost an eye, so it's not that. Except Corner says 2 of your dogs died of cancer last 4 years. 3 of the buddy guy, dog sweet. Yeah. It's great. Blue Healer. Bluey! I'm very familiar with Bluey. Former nutritionist for the Laker and biologist. You, Nat G? No. Catherine Shanahan. Dude, that's exactly the point. Do it for Hank. Absolutely have to. And I talked about that with Casimir last night. The importance of improving yourself. So I got some things. It's going to start to get... I'm actually, believe it or not, this is a true story. When I was at the peak of my alcoholism, I weighed like 320 pounds. And now I think I weigh like 263, which is still a fat bastard for being 5'8". But like you saw that video last night, I showed that video. Even looking back at videos of me for 3-4 years ago, I feel like I could tell I lost, that I look different, I don't know. Like, where's the video? I've had it. I feel like I could tell that I weighed more than I probably weighed like 280, 290 in that picture. So I've lost probably 20 pounds since then. And that was 2020. So, trying. But I will not be streaming tomorrow. Well, maybe I will be, but I won't be doing a normal stream, unfortunately. The reason is, once more, we got another wedding thing. So the wedding thing's not until Saturday morning, but it's in Pittsburgh. So I'm going out to a friend's house tomorrow evening, and we're going to spend the night there. I might stream on my phone, and that will be a YouTube exclusive if I did it. So if you pay attention, oh no, dude, I'm a former alcoholic. I'm not the type of person that can't have a beer, though. I just don't do it very often, but it's not like it's putting me down a dark path or anything like that. I'll probably drink tomorrow night, to be honest with you. Anywho, so if I am streaming tomorrow evening, it will be at a friend's house on a phone, and it will probably be silliness. It'll probably be, hey, my friend Matt and me are going to yell about who's going to win the Stanley Cup playoffs, something like that. So we'll see. But stay safe out there. Thanks so much, everyone. Oh, let's raid someone. Who we raiding? Oh, bummer. From Hell Pickle's on again. Debate with Connor is supposed to be next Thursday, as far as I know. 8 o'clock Thursday night, next Thursday. So, there's really no one on to it. You want to just do a rando? I like doing a random person with like no viewers. Let's see if we can do that. How do We'll do you want to do just chatting? Viewers high to low? Why can't you do low to high? We'll scroll way down. Now listen, be nice to whoever we pick. We're not trying to start any battles. What's the limit here? What are we looking for? Someone with less than 5 streamers? First person with less than 5 streamers we see, or viewers we see that looks like they're speaking English and it's probably going to be a lefty, but you know, how can you tell? All right, here we go. Bro talk. No, we'll skip that. There's people just watching anime. Well, that one looked good, but I don't think it's in English. How about this guy? Player Essence. Switch refuses to die. Paper Mario. Talking about the Switch and Paper Mario. Yay or nay? What do you think? I don't think whatever's on Twitch. And I don't have it set up to where I could raid on YouTube. Do we want to raid the guy talking about Paper Mario? Thumbs up, thumbs down. You know Player Essence? You all right? Or we get this guy, Paper Mario. Is whatever on... Okay, let's look. God damn it. Is whatever on Twitch? Yeah, okay. We'll raid that. I didn't realize they were on Twitch too. Sounds good. Okie dokie. All right. Sorry, Player Essence. We'll talk Paper Mario some other time. All right. I just thought they were YouTube stuff, but okay. I'm not, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan. Not my forte. That sort of red pill stuff. It's not really red pill stuff, I guess, but, you know. Not for me. Thanks, Roar. Yeah, I'll be back. So look for me if I'm streaming tomorrow. It'll be around the same time. If not, because I'm missing Friday, for you all, I'll try to do Sunday or Monday at work. I shouldn't. The work streams screw me over, so just click around 8 p.m. Eastern and you'll see me Sunday or Monday. All right. Enjoy the whatever Twitch podcast. I am out. You guys, as always, have a good one. Oh, real quick. If you liked anything here and you would like to see it clipped, please, after this video, go to my YouTube video and go to the comment section and say, hey, I liked this part around this time. And that'll help us know what the audience would like to see clipped. Thanks so much. All right, we'll see you, everyone. Have a good one.
I'm going to be able to inherit land. Like,